A very good afternoon, everybody. Final week begins here. One of the shorter stages, but important for the climbs that it has. The Passo Gavia, the Passo Stelvio, and the Val Martello. The stage that snow forced a cancellation of last year. The hardest part, the long climb in the end. Today, though, is difficult. We have time gaps, and we're going to do our best to put some order to things on the road. Straight to Sean Kelly, who's alongside me. Sean, first of all, today, before we get to the consideration of whether we should be racing, whether we shouldn't be racing, it's all happening on the road. They are all over the place.
Yes, and all over on the descent. We see on the Gavia, they rode a steady pace in the pink jersey, and then we started doing the descent and it got just wet, cold, and we could see riders there. They were just starting to freeze up on the way down, and for that reason we have groups everywhere. As we can see here, we had a group of Pelazzotti, Cataldo and Villamos, and there's more riders coming across, and we can see just riders everywhere, and a lot of riders, I think, very cold after doing this freezing descent. We did see 0 degrees at a time.
We saw 0 degrees. We've seen a lot of tweets from angry riders who are part of the pro peloton at the minute who aren't riding, and probably thankful they're not riding today. We've seen fans saying this is too much, worried for the riders' safety. At the minute, the race is what it is out there on the road. Sean, seeing these conditions, though, harking back all the way back to 1988, Andy Hampston and all that, and riders, grown men crying. Is this too much for you? I know that it's certainly too much for most of the pro peloton, who are both on the roads protesting. We'll go through their tweets afterwards, and those sitting at home watching.
Yes, I think it's too cold and too dangerous out here, because first of all, the Gavia, we are only 23.3 kilometres, and then we go on to the Stelvio. We were seeing there, it's freezing cold up there also, and as you go further on during the stage, the top of the Stelvio is about 67 kilometres, and when you start the descent, 25 kilometres descent, if you get the wet conditions there, you know, you're going to start getting really cold then, because the body is starting to get tired after all this climbing, and that's where we could have difficulty. And it looks like Stelvio, the weather is not any better than what we had on the Gavia.
The weather is poor, the weather is awful. There are so many big moments to come today, of course. Possibly inhumane, certainly not safe, and I think I'm certainly very much in that camp with Sean there, that it doesn't make the most comfortable viewing, but the riders go ahead, we go ahead. Whether it's correct that they're out there at the moment, or they should have done the modified course that had been planned. A late decision made this morning, and they're out on the road. One thing is certain, I think that this stage is going to have a huge effect on the rest of the Giro d'Italia, not just in the time differences today, but some people are bound to get ill and struggle with colds, struggle with illnesses they already have, aren't they?
Yes, well, it's so dangerous out here, and you know, we've been talking about it. A few riders having colds. Quintana, of course, is the one who we talked about, but with these conditions, it's going to have a huge effect. Not only getting a cold, but on the day, the end of the day, being out here in the cold all day. When you get to the final climb of the day, if you get to that climb, but you know, have to get to the Stelvio first and try and get down off of that. And when you're out there, if you have anything to go from this race, well, you're going to continue. You know, you're saying, well, the other ones are able to do it, but sometimes it has more of an effect on riders. The cold hit them more, and you know, you can have some drastic effects. So hopefully, because they're out there in that cold, you must remember, coming downhill, you're braking. It's so difficult to brake, and that is the danger. Hopefully we don't see anybody getting, you know, a bad fall.
Well, again, when they're climbing here, yes, it's just the bad weather and the cold you put up with. It's when the descent is on that you really start to worry. The riders looked very, very unsure coming down. We had a few riders out the front. This is the front of the race at the minute, led by Dario Cataldo. We've had Alexi Vujamo out there up front as well. Montaguti's been riding close to the front. How did it all kick off today? Well, Robinson Chalapud was the first man to go out. He went and attacked straight away on the Gavia. Movistar then set the pace in the group behind for Nairo Quintana, just as they've been doing here. Arredondo and Pantano went out chasing Chalapud. Alberto Losada also attacked, as we're 53 kilometres into the race at the minute. Chalapud, Arredondo and Pantano, the order 1, 2 and 3 as they came over the first Passo Gavia. So 32 points for Chalapud, 20 for Arredondo and 14 for Pantano in the race for the blue jersey of the King of the Mountains. And then again, it all got mixed up on the descent. This is where we find ourselves at the minute. Pantano's still in there, Pelizzotti's there, Kieselowski, Croatian champion, right at the front of this group. Niemiec is behind, the Polish rider as well. And Diego Rosa, I think, is going to come and join them. We've seen Pelizzotti up there. Again, a lot of people watching the stage early on Those working for the spotters and the graphics department seemed to think that Ben Swift was the skyman in front. Turned out to be Dario Cataldo. This, in the meantime, is Andre Amador, the Costa Rican. Certainly not at home in this sort of weather. A lot of work being done for him. Quintana, who's taken his cotton wool out of his ears. He had an ear infection yesterday, was talking to the press, but up and under a blanket. He's had all sorts of illness and problems. Actually went to apologise to Domenico Pozzovivo earlier on in the stage to Monte Campione, where we saw the nice weather on Sunday, the great win by Fabio Aru. Domenico Pozzovivo accepting the apology from the previous day. Of course, when Quintana attacked with Pozzovivo but didn't give him a turn. So those two made up and made friends again. This is the climb at the minute to the Stelvio. Starts at Prato allo Stelvio, bottom of the summit. 48 hairpin bends to the top. That's 27 more than Alpe d'Huez. Not an easy climb. The gradient is fairly steady all the way up, but again, in these conditions, Sean, a quick word about it, it just makes it so much harder, doesn't it?
Yes, makes it very hard, and you know, we can see the riders the way they're wrapped up. As you go up the climb, you're going to start getting warm, you start to sweat a bit, then you get to the summit and you start going downhill, and you're in 0 degrees in the final 3-4 kilometers before the summit at least, and then you go downhill, same again, and
83.3 kilometers to go on what is an epic day on the Giro d'Italia. Not perhaps for entirely right reasons. First wish for everybody out there today is for the rider safety. A lot of people already putting the organisers under pressure to cancel this stage. Problem isn't too much when we're going uphill now. Yes, it's horrible, it's cold, it's freezing. We've seen riders trying to shake the cold out of their hands, change the gloves, have 3 or 4 different rain jackets on. But of course, when we get to the descent, we'll start to worry a little. 2 minutes and 29 for the breakaway. We had 8 riders up there, 9 in front at the moment. And this is Alexandre Geniez. Given a little push up by one of the crazy fans out there on the road. A good push as well. This is the front of the race. Diego Rosa on the left-hand side. Przemysław Niemiec in the blue jacket. Alexis Vuillermoz and Hubert Dupont are the 2 Azure Desert riders. Also there is Pantano of Colombia. This is back in the peloton. Nairo Quintana, third wheel, as you can see. Movistar still having 5 men up there. And we're trying to look for Cadel Evans at the minute. We've seen him in different places today, Sean. He's been distanced, he's been in the group. Looks like he's towards the back there, but again, it's one of the days where the weather could really either make this Giro with the survival of the fittest or spoil it, putting a lot of people out of it.
yes, well, it can be a detrimental stage for some of the riders later on. As you go further on in the stage, these conditions, you know, are going to start affecting riders, and the general classification, and we could see some of them having difficulty in the end. And it is just, you know, about survival today, and I think you have to just hang in there. And, you know, there's all talk about the safety. It is definitely, you know, real dangers out there. We did see the descent, and as you get further into the stage, of course, you know, they're going to be pushing a bit more in the descent. The Gavia, they probably came down a bit slow because a long ways out. But when you get to the Stelvio, well, then they're going to, you know, maybe push on a bit more. And the Stelvio descent, a long one, 25 kilometres, and that is going to be a freezer once again.
After that, we've got a brand new climb on the Giro d'Italia. As we said, a lot of riders, even before the day started today, just having seen the forecast, did not want to start, and it's quite understandable. Tosh van der Sande, one of the sprinters in the group, who will be having a horrible day trying to stay in with the gruppetto and trying to make sure he's there. He said, well, tweeted quite simply, "Welcome to the circus," obviously suggesting that things had been put out there that shouldn't have been put out there in terms of obstacle and weather. Giovanni Visconti not riding the Giro this year, winner on a mountain stage previously, saying non mandatile lassù, don't send them up there. That was a little tweet to the organisers. Brent Buckwalter, a man we've seen doing work for Cadel Evans today, tweeting, "Wise man says just because you can doesn't mean you should, pardon me." A lot of ex-pros with opinions as well, relatives, and even the previous organiser of the Giro, now no longer at the head. Previous RCS man, Acquarone, saying that it should not be run as well. Here we are though, Passo dello Stelvio, 7.4%. Nice that we can have the gradient up the top. Work for Cadel Evans being done all the time. BMC having a full team at the start of this Giro. They've lost Yannick Eisen so far. Here's Nairo Quintana. Rigoberto Urán just behind him. You can tell him apart with the pink jersey peeping out that black raincoat. Quintana hoping to feel better today. He's not really going to help his recovery chances though, is it?
No, it's certainly not good if you're suffering a bit. And we can see there some of the riders that, you know, wrapped up totally with the raincoats. Other ones have the raincoat open a bit, and that is important as well. That you try and not get too hot or hot at all if you can. Just keep cool, because the more warm you get, the more you will start to heat up. Well, then on the descent you're going to cool down very, very quickly, and that's something you have to be very careful with. And it's going to be a killer of a day for everybody here. And normally the riders like Quintana, the riders who really perform in the cold conditions, you would expect them to be suffering today, and so, you know, maybe pay the price a bit more, but we'll have to wait and see.
Dupont, Pellizotti, Chalapud, Vuillermo, Rosa, Pantano, Niemetz, Cataldo and Kieślowski. That's now a 9-man group at the head of this race. 81.9 kilometers to go. Yes, we set our piece in the conditions. Of course, you've got plenty of opinions at home. We'd love to hear you. Hashtag Eurosport Cycling at Rob Hatch TV. But we'll do our best to concentrate on the race that's out there at the minute. Of course, the spectacle is there. And while it is there, of course, we will enjoy it and take it as entertainment. And this is what we're here for, of course. Movistar have got a big job to do today for Nairo Quintana. Not just the leader who has to stay healthy. Stelvio, such a spectacular image as Quintana gets rid of his raincoat. Because it's so important as well, not just being okay up the climb, but as soon as you get over the climb, Sean, you've got to remember, you've got to have the time to put that raincoat on, stop the cold, stop the wind getting onto your chest. There's a lot of thinking and mental energy goes into a stage like this as well. Yes, well,
You have to, you know, think ahead, and as we see Quintana getting off the raincoat there, it's a good thing, because if you continue on, you get nice and warm, but then when you get to the summit and you start the descent, you get cold very quickly. So take it off and then put it on before you get to the top. Not an easy thing to do. We see Quintana there, you know, climbing. A little bit of difficulty getting over the big winter clothes, but he's got it off now. We can see there's a lot of riders getting the raincoats off. And you know, guarantee you, as we get to the summit of this one, which is a long, long climb, it's you know, it goes on just forever, the Stelvio, and you have to get back into your rain kit again for the descent. Evans on the left-hand side. He's got the black helmet on today. There's certainly no debate about wearing those sealed vent era helmets. They'll be a godsend today, won't they? Stop the rain getting in. One of the many, many hairpins. 40 odd of them up to the top. An epic mountain, a mountain that goes down in the history of the Giro. Not just the Giro though, the pioneers who built these mountain passes, and of course all of those thousands and thousands of years ago, back in tribal times, going up into the mountains on with a bow and arrow. It's with a bike they go up this time. There is the stage winner from the other day, Fabio Aru. The whole of Sardinia has got behind him. Even Gigi Riva, former Italian national footballer, 35 goals in the national team. The only man in recent history to have won a league title with Cagliari as the start. And even he, for the legend of back in those 1970s, talking about cycling at the weekend, saying that Sardinia's in crisis. Aru is a man to unite the island, get the region going, and it's something for them to be very, very proud of.
so much pressure already after just one stage, and we mentioned it might be the case, Sean. It's how he deals with that mentality of all the pressure now, and of course the press conference he's going to have to do, and he's the best placed Italian in the Giro.
Yes, well, it's been building since Scarponi had a difficulty in losing out all chances of general classification. Of course, Aru for Astana, he is the man, and he won that stage very, very good 2 days ago on Sunday. Tactically, he rode very well. He just allowed the race to go on, and then at a moment when he felt the big favourites were really marking each other, went for it, and of course had the legs, and you have got to be in the shape to be able to do that. And now he is really building up to be the Italian of the tour, and there's going to be more and more focus on him, and that'll be the question: will he support it all the way? Looks like till now he seems to be getting through quite well, and carrying that weight on his shoulders very, very well.
Carrying the conditions as well as they can at the minute are the leaders at the front of the race. 9 riders are there. When we come back, we'll analyse the rest of the climb to the top of the Stelvio, then that deadly descent. All coming up on Eurosport Cycling. Almost 3 minutes with just under 80 k's to go for our 9 leaders. Alexandre Genier, the French rider from Française des Jeux, is attempting to make the bridge here. It's going to be very interesting how, if this race settles down on the way up to the Stelvio. A lot of people inside this group looking for things other than the general classification, certainly thinking about the mountains classification, Sean. This is the big prize, isn't it? This is the Cima Coppi, the highest point in the race. The part of the race named after Fausto Coppi, the Italian cycling legend. More points than any other climb for this, a full 40 for the first man over. Anybody with designs on the blue King of the Mountains jersey could do worse than getting the great break here.
Yes, well, huge points to be marked up for the mountain classification on the stage today. Many more huge points to be marked up on the rest of the week. So it's still very much to play for the general classification in the mountains, as a lot of the classifications are. The overall classification is wide open at the moment. There's nobody dominating, and it's going to be a very interesting final week of racing. And the men for the sprints, the points classification men, they're going to have a big battle today to try and get into the time limit, because we can see the way the peloton, 30 riders, 35 riders in this group of the pink jersey, and there's just so many groups out on the road there. It's going to be a real difficult day for everyone.
Difficult day for everyone. This is the man right at the front who could make a big stride forward towards the blue jersey with some points at the top. Robinson Chalapur, who took 32. Now a little further up, third in the mountains classification at the minute. This is Alexandre Genier, French rider, riding of course for Française des Jeux. 34 seconds for him. Time gaps were changing all the time, of course. And I'm sure you'll understand the lack of helicopter shots up the top here. Helicopters have their terrain and flying very much restricted in weather like this. We've got the plane up, so we've got the images to you from the motorbikes. 29-second then. Certainly not 79.4 kilometers per hour though at the minute. Movistar looking strong at the front. Those bright green helmets for the Spanish team. Nairo Quintana in the shorts today. Means business perhaps. Had his rest day, as I said, underneath the big duvet. Cotton wool in his ear, finishing the course of antibiotics, but he will be delighted because his wife and his young child Mariana have flown in from Colombia today. He has company for the final week, hoping to cheer him on to a victory. With the distance he has, Sean, it's hard to make forecasts. 2 minutes 40, he's fifth, he's been getting slightly better. He can still win the Giro, can't he? Yes,
well, he's walking away at it and just chipping away at the advantage that Cadel Evans had and some of the others. So he is, in a position where he certainly can win this race. And as we've talked about right from the start, this final week is going to be of great importance, because there's so many mountaintop finishes and so many mountains to be climbed. And looking at the way he's going, he is, every time we have a mountaintop finish, he's pulling back time, and today is a day where we could see him, pulling back much bigger time than he has in the past number of mountaintop finishes.
There is Nairo Quintana, concentrated, head down, looks up every so often, being guided by his team at the minute. He's also talking up the man behind him in the green, Pierre Rolland, and he was talking him up as a really good ally in the days to come. Rolland with a real appetite, an almost insatiable appetite, I think I said the other day, to attack any time in a mountain stage. He's perhaps lost a bit much time to be considered a serious contender for the pink jersey at the end of it, but he could be looking at a podium just outside, certainly a stage win. You think he would be a good ally for Nairo Quintana, certainly better than his immediate rivals, who'll be watching his every move?
Well, I think it's going to be a problem to get him as an ally, because to get away with Pierre Rolland, Quintana, I don't think he'll be allowed to do that. He is too close for comfort, where Pierre Rolland at what, 4:47, he is far enough away maybe to have a go and try something, but I don't think Quintana, if they can match him on this final climb today, they're not going to allow him to take any advantage at all. And you know, Uran, Maika, Aru, Pozzovivo, all of those guys are going to, you know, watch him and try and stay with him all the way up the final climb today, where Pierre Rolland, I reckon if he goes into attack, he'll be allowed to take a bit of time because he's that bit further off. 4:47 for Pierre Rolland at the moment on general classification. Of course, Nairo Quintana himself perhaps not having a good enough look at that general classification. He's the man who suggested in an interview yesterday that Rolland could be a good ally for him. Perhaps playing games with his rivals, perhaps putting the pressure on. Rigoberto Urán spent his rest day riding for an hour and the rest of it in bed. Didn't turn up for the press conference on the rest day. Put a 4 or 5 line statement out via the team saying that everything was okay, repeating that everything was okay, and then telling him it was all okay again, Sean. Does that perhaps show any weakness in Urán, the fact that he might be a little bit worried going into the final week, or is that just his way of dealing with it? Well, I think you have to be worried. When you look at what we've been through, Friday, Saturday stage, Urán seemed to be struggling a bit. I thought he would be a bit more, much more active and much more alert when the bigger favourites attack. But we see him there. He just allowed Quintana, he allowed Pozzovivo to take some time out of him. Is he suffering, or is he just making the calculation? That is the question. And I think today, that's where the question will be answered, because this longer climb to the finish, much more steeper percentage. I think you have to, you know, mark the other men in the general classification. You cannot leave and get away from him at all, because the moment they get 200 or 300 metres on this very steep final, it's going to be more into 15, 20 seconds so quickly.
Stay warm, stay hydrated, stay fed. It is even more important than ever today. Survival of the fittest in these epic conditions. These guys are hard as nails out there. Let's make no mistake about it. Some people tweeting in hashtag Eurosport Cycling saying King Kelly would have done it in his vest.
No,
not true, is it?
No, thanks.
How much, seriously, how much has clothing and the protection that you have changed since your day now?
Well, you know, the clothing, you can breathe much better in the rain jackets we've got now, where back in my time, you know, they were waterproof, but, you know, you just totally boil in them when you start going uphill. And of course the clothing, the race jerseys and all of that stuff as well, you know, is a much better quality. And if the teams, they have winter shorts, winter jerseys. When you get into the Tour of France and the warm conditions, they have a much lighter kit. So today is going to be the day where you're going to be using the early season stuff, like for the classics, and we can see the raincoats are, you know, very popular to today, but nobody likes these conditions. And a lot of people say, well, I really, you know, when I woke up in the morning time, I was really happy when I came down to breakfast. It wasn't the case. I just supported it very well, and that's the case today. There's riders who support the cold, the wet conditions much better than other ones.
Alexandre Genier is doing a good job. He's almost made the junction to the group in front. Cima Coppi, this is. Passo dello Stelvio. It's gone down in legend throughout the years. Not just in cycling, as I said before, but in sheer geography and the development of the human race in this part of the world. Different tribes, different towns, the formation of regions, countries, kingdoms. This is an area very much that has been disputed for centuries and centuries between Austria and Italy. The moment spot of Italy. And we're arriving today in the Alto Adige region, or the Sud Tirol, southern Tyrol. German is the native language in a town of just under 1,000 people up in the Martel Valley. the Martello, the Val Martello in Italian. Seems to be a bit more order now, Sean, on this climb than we had certainly around half an hour ago when riders were all over the road. People seem to have settled into the race a little now.
Well, we've got down to the descent, and that was a big problem getting down to Gavia. You know, there was riders who were feeling so cold on the way down, and when you're really cold, you cannot, you know, brake well, so you slow down a lot. And we did see there was just groups everywhere, you know, individual riders, groups of 3 or 4 riders, and now they have been a bit of a grouping. But in the group of big favourites here, we still have only 35 to 40 riders maximum, and it's a very small group at this point in the race. And we can see it's Movistar who are starting to pace the pace. Is there a reason for that? Maybe that they just want to keep on just tapping away at the front here and camp situation. Quintana maybe not as comfortable as we're expecting them to be, or are they want them to push on here and make it more difficult for everybody? So we'll have to wait and see on this climb, but I don't think the big favourites will do much on this climb. It's far too away from the finish.
Far too away from the finish. Exactly what Nairo Quintana was finishing up saying yesterday when he attended to the members of the press. Just saying that, well, yes, it's going to be epic. Yes, we're going to have a small group for much of the stage in the main pink jersey group. And, of course, unless there was an unforeseeable big move made, that hasn't been made. And he was saying it's all going to come down to the final climb. The final climb, yes, it's not the Cima Coppi. It's certainly not the Gavia. It's a new climb, the first one that's been used, but there are so many hairpins. It's steep, it's long. It's going to have a lot to say itself, isn't it?
Yes, it's going to be a difficult one. On a good day, nice weather, a little bit of sunshine, it will be a difficult day, but with the wet conditions, this is going to be, you know, a killer for some of the riders. And the question is, who is the ones will really suffer in the final? And the climb itself, you know, it's over 22 kilometers long, and the percentage is a killer in the end. It really kicks up steeply in the final kilometer. You know, there's 14%. That is going to be a real leg breaker when you consider 22 kilometers climbing and what they're going through out here already and what's to be done.
Spectacular images despite the banks of cloud and the rain falling down. Now then, what's happening here? Pierre Rolland starting to get interested. Maglia Rosa group. Movistar at the minute, just staying on the wheel, but where is Nairo Quintana? A few jerseys down. Rolland starting the day early. We said it was all going to come down to the final climb, but perhaps he's got eyes on something else. Just being escorted up at the minute. Rafael Majka's obviously feeling good enough because there are plenty of Tinkoff-Saxo riders up there. Pierre Rolland, 4 minutes and 47. He's the second wheel there. Movistar riders just marshalling things. Again, we've given kudos to the riders, kudos for all the fans, the hardcore fans that have turned up on the side of the roads here. Some people have camped out. We've got umbrellas. We've got people who thought they're in for a summer's day down on the plains of Lombardy, would have made the trip up back in time a few months to winter. Geniez leading them up front of the race. 10 riders at the front now. Frances Desjeux rider trying to lead them up. Pantano behind, on our way up to the Stelvio. Pelizzotti goes past. We'll be back in just a minute. This is Eurosport Cycling and the Giro d'Italia. Franco Pelizzotti, former Italian champion, former Liquigas rider, now with Androni Giocattoli. He has a help in this group going forward. Diego Rosa, group of 10 men that are making their way up the legendary Passo dello Stelvio. Took 3 years to build in the 1800s. Epic bit of road building. Now, bad news for the man leading the Giro at the minute, Sean, because he's losing some vital allies. During the break, you and I had just seen 2 men, very important men, being slightly distanced in the bunch. Tom de Gent, former podium man at the Giro d'Italia, and Serge Pauwels as well. Big blow already, that.
Yes, and we can see the reason why. It's, excuse me, Tinkoff-Saxo who's taken it up. Nicholas Roche on the front of the group, we see a moment ago, and Rabottini as well having difficulty. And you know, those guys are really good climbers. They should be have no problem staying in there, but the pace, as we can see, gaps starting to appear here, and it's because of Tinkoff-Saxo pushing on.
Castrovallejo as well. man who is scheduled to help look after Nairo Quintana as well, the rest of the Movistar team. There's Serge Pauwels, the man we were talking about. 131 is Matteo Rabottini, scheduled to be the leader of Neri Sottoli, now 14 minutes and 25 down. Thanks to all of you who've written in on hashtag Eurosport Cycling, @RobHatchTV. Yesterday is an unmissable watch, but again, the faces are pretty miserable out there. It's not necessarily the most comfortable watch, we'll admit that. But of course, this is happening. This is the Giro. This is the epic stage that was cancelled last year through the snow. Today, it is going ahead. Fabio Aru from the warm climes of Sardinia. How many layers he got on, Sean?
Well, we can see there he has 3 layers. We can see he's got a body warmer, he's got a jersey under it, then he's got his race jersey, and under that, of course, as well, he have some sort of a protection. So he has 4 layers, we can see, and then we have seen him on the descent where they put on this raincoat. We see Cataldo here, he's riding still with the raincoat up the climb, but a lot of the guys back in the main peloton have taken off the raincoat for the moment.
Dario Cataldo came so close to it the other day. Alexis Vouillamont behind, rider who's had a fantastic progression this year. Paris-Nice was excellent for him. Then he was working for Betancourt. This time, it's all about Pozzo Vivo. Today he's in the breakaway. Behind him is Hubert Dupont, the front of the race. But we just saw a brief time gap there, below 2 minutes. And that's thanks to the pushing on that had been done a couple of minutes earlier, the one that put the likes of Pauwels, De Gent and Rabottini in difficulty. Tinkoff-Saxo doing a good job. 75.4 Ks to go. This is why cycling is the toughest sport in the world. See these images, and I really don't think anybody could argue with that. Ben Swift climbing with the very best on the Giro d'Italia right at the back. A word for him. What a spring season.
Yes, well, he made a lot of ground on the descent, of course. We see him there. He was really pushing on, and that's the sprinters, they can do that. They can descend so well, especially when it's treacherous conditions, and they certainly have got that today. We can see also Philip Daigan there from Sky hanging on the rear of that group, but a lot of riders just starting to lose. We can see the Garmin Sharp rider, it looked like Cardoso there. He's out of the saddle trying to hold on to the rear end of the peloton, and he's just on the limit at the moment, and that's because of Tinkoff-Saxo pushing on and keeping the pace quite high here.
Nicholas Roach doing his best as we go past the War Monument on the way up to Stelvio. Again, huge battleground in both world conflicts, certainly the Second World War. Of course, in those conflicts you saw terrain changing hands. Rigoberto Urán just in front of rider Hejsdal. Hejsdal's already won one of those pink jerseys that Urán is wearing. Danny Moreno behind him in the red and white for Katusha. We've seen Alberto Losada have an attack. And Cadel Evans, who seems to have covered his helmet with some sort of insulation there.
As we can see with Movistar, they also have the cover on the helmet. And that is very important, because when you start going downhill, it's you get so much cold air coming through the helmet. You have to try and wrap up as much as possible, and there's a lot of teams there with certainly with something on the helmet. You need that today, but also on the outside we can see there's quite a few teams have put a cover over the helmet,
and we can see it right at the front here as well. Diego Rosa taking it up for Androni. Couple of riders going back to the team car just to get some food and drink. Again, what sort of thing are the riders drinking here? Is it a hot tea day, Sean?
Well, I think it'd definitely be a hot tea day, and the forecast has been there for a number of days, so the teams are well aware, so they would have stocked up big time on some hot tea, and it would be a godsend when you're really cold, to get some hot tea down you. It does warm you up, and I think it will be a big go today.
Cataldo on the right hand side. There's Niemetz, another man who hasn't particularly had a great Giro as far as he was hoping to do. He was hoping to ride for the general classification. He's now 1 hour and 3 minutes back. 75 Ks to go for the peloton. Well above the snow line, as you can see. It's been a case of will we, won't we, for the last few weeks. We've had daily updates, photos, looks at the webcam. Today we are doing, but the gap is down to 1 minute and 3 seconds. So Stelvio peeks out. There's that very long descent that Sean was talking about. Going through to Lhasa. Cilandro, and then the final climb will begin. Very, very long one. And it's a sort of day that you sort of wish, not just for the rider's sake and the safety's sake, but also for the beauty shot's sake as well, that we had the sunshine. It would be absolutely stunning with the banks of snow and the riders riding up here now.
Yes, so well, it would be unbelievable with a good sunshine here, and you know, it's going to be a long day. 74 kilometers to go. We're not halfway. 70 kilometers is roughly the halfway point at the top of the Stelvio. That's when we hit the halfway in the race. So it is going to be, you know, a long, hard day. And when you see that in the peloton there, 75 kilometers to finish, you say, oh my God. If you're starting to suffer and if you're feeling a bit cold, well then, you know, it's so hard to keep motivation.
Huge test to the motivation. Still a good 5-6k before they get to the top of the Stelvio. Tops out with 68.7 to go. Into the province of Bolzano, or Bozen. Its original German name. Was German the first language of most of the Alto Adige or Südtirol region, but Italian widely spoken as well. Most natives bilingual. Inside the final 74 kilometres of this stage 16 on the Giro d'Italia. The last brutal week that we spent 2.5 weeks talking about, picking up, is finally here, but it is more brutal than any of you could have imagined. This is for the tough guys, no doubt about that. You see the peloton chasing behind. Gap is round to about a minute or even less now for the 10 riders out in front. Good pace being put on by Tinkoff-Saxo. Robert Kieślowski on the right-hand side. Kieślowski, the Croatian champion, at 5 minutes 44 back. He's the most dangerous man in this group. Is that the reason that Tinkoff-Saxo are putting so much pace on?
It's surprising that's putting pace on because, you know, with the advantage for the breakaway, it's not really a concern at the moment, but they feel that, yeah, they need to do it here. And Mike, of course, I think he's the one that supports these horrible conditions very well. I remember last year on some of the stages when it was really bad conditions, he was very, very performant. He probably did his best days, and it looks like they, you know, they just want to make the race very, very difficult for everybody. As we can see him here, he's just
the devil.
Stripping off a bit, opening up his long sleeve jersey, trying to get a bit of food, of course, as well. And that is the difficult one today with the big winter gloves, and then you have so many layers on trying to get your food. It's a struggle. We've seen a lot of riders struggling here, but you still have to, you know, get in there, get your food, because it's so important today that you get plenty of food into you and also plenty of drink. And that's something as well. You don't feel thirsty, you don't feel like drinking, but you have to, you know, make sure that you don't get dehydrated. And you can get dehydrated, surprisingly, on a day like today when you're wrapped up like this as well. You know, you're just so much layers on. You do actually sweat quite a lot, and you know, it's all about experience. You have to just keep on eating and drinking all the time.
Could today be a case where, certainly looking after your body and looking after how hydrated, as you say, you are, and how well fed and watered and relaxed and warm you are, is much more important than your simple ability on the bike?
Well, it's all very important. Your ability on the bike is going to be important today. You know, if you're a rider that can, you know, climb quite well, get the mountain stages, if that is your 4th point, well then it's going to be a day for you. But the weather conditions, how do you support that? You know, are you one that can support the cold, wet weather conditions? If you are, well then, you know, you're in with a great chance today to do some of this stage. But you have to remember as well to eat and drink all the time. That is so important. And when you're, you know, cold there a bit on the bike, it's so hard, you know, to get into your pockets to get your food out, but you have to, you know, just battle on and make sure you do it all the time and, you know, pretty regularly.
Race radio, which isn't getting everywhere today, we've been told. A few cut-offs, lack of communication. But apparently the commissaires have reportedly decided, as we see Gianni Savio in the car for Andron Giocattoli, of course today for them to keep warm and be careful driving down the descents as well. And it is the descents that we've been worried about, the descents that gave us those horrible images and all those protests and the tweets that we saw from current riders, ex-riders watching on. We've heard on race radio that apparently the descent will be neutralised. Does that make sense to you, Sean? No racing on the descent. How can they implement it, though?
Well, it's going to be a difficult one, because if you don't have race on the descent, do you go down at a very slow pace, which will be done if that is the case. But then you're going to get so cold. At least if you get down quickly, you get down out of the the very high altitude, and the temperature starts to come up a bit. So. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I don't think they can put everybody into cars and start doing the descent and get back out again. That is going to be, a total disaster, because when you get into the car and get out again, you're going to be totally frozen. So it's an interesting one. But again, the safety, I think the organisers are really concerned about the safety, and at least by doing that, you take the big risk element out of it and just get the riders to go down at an easier pace. But whatever you do here, it's going to be a real dog of a day.
You start to get the feeling that the organisers might have just realised, with the weight of criticism they've received this morning, that they've made a bit of mistake. They may have been well under pressure from the organising authorities here to make sure this stage went ahead. Remember, we cancelled this very stage last year, Sean. Do you think there's been a quick sea change of opinion and oh dear, we've really got this one wrong?
Yes, I think the voice is out there. Doing this stage is not it's not good for the organisers. I think they're going to have a lot of problems, and a lot of the teams giving out, and you're just looking at everybody, riders, managers, riders that are not in the race, they're all against it out here today. But for the organisers, they've cancelled this stage in the past, and they just want to try and do it at all costs today. But hopefully that the cost won't be too great, and now we're hearing, yes, possibly neutralised for the descent, but it's not going to make it. I can't see it making it any easier for the riders from a physical point of view, but it does take probably that dangerous aspect out of where the riders can go down that bit slower, and there's no need to push on, because it's going to restart at the further down or at the bottom of the climb.
Well, the latest update we're getting from race radio is that riders will actually stay on their bikes, but there will be a motorbike which will guide them down the descent at a safe pace, in inverted commas. Now look at this snow coming down in the rider's face. This is absolutely brutal. Nicholas Roach really driving it for Tinkoff-Saxo, and they've almost closed the gap. Daniel Cataldo has seen that, and he's decided to go. Attack from the Sky Rider, and Sky desperately wants something from this Giro d'Italia. You can understand why they're going to try and get something out. And Daniel Cataldo strikes out for home with a long, long, long way to go. Happening all over the road here. This is the moment that Cataldo went. Will have been told, will have been informed that they were being caught. All thanks to Nicholas Roach and team Tinkoff-Saxo. Sterling bit of work being done behind. Cataldo out in front.
Yes, and how can you stop a rider like this? I think he is really up for today, and a rider that support the conditions quite well, and he will want to do the descent. When he gets to the summit here, if he pulls out 30 or 40 seconds on the rest of the breakaway, or possibly some of them maybe come across them before the top, they will want to go on and make the descent at quite a fast pace, because Cataldo, he knows that on the descent he can pull out a bigger advantage again. So it's going to be interesting at the top to see how they're going to stop the riders. But of course, yeah, if they just put all the race organisers' cars across the road, but all that stopping and hanging about and just getting them organised to do the descent is going to be not good for the riders, and there's going to be a lot of unhappy people.
There are, we're getting very, very legitimate questions here. Chris Birch says surely the drop riders are going to ride fast on the descent to catch up. How do you stop that? How do you then neutralise it? As a man who raced in another era when perhaps less concerns, unfortunately, for safety were taken, Fausto Coppi, his monument stands on the Stelvio. Nightmare conditions today on the Giro. .3 kilometres to go. Tinkoff-Saxo have done a superb job on the ascent of the Stelvio. The question is, what's going to happen on the way down? We've got a Movistar car trying to come in to get past now. We have race radio saying that they're going to try and neutralise the next descent because it is so dangerous. You can see the conditions are horrific here. I think the overwhelming view within cycling, amongst professionals, amongst past professionals, amongst the man assigned me in the commentary box, is that this is dangerous and this is a risk to safety. But we're racing now. I mean, do the organisers not just have to swallow their pride and say, well, we don't race at all? Because it seems like a silly halfway house, doesn't it, to try and do what they're going to try and do?
Yes, well, that is going to be the difficult one. When you neutralise it and make the descent, well, then the riders are going to say, well, we're not continuing on, you know, we're just not continuing on these conditions. And you know, there's so much discussion going on about the stage today for the last number of weeks and the last number of days with the snow up here, and unfortunately, you know, the weather have closed in and it's starting to rain, and it's going to be a real difficult one at the top of the climb to, you know, to get the riders, you know, to stop first of all, because some want to go on, some want to, you know, go down slowly, of course. And then a good point, one of our viewers talking about the group behind. I don't think they'll really be concerned about the gruppetto, because they will be a long ways behind, and I don't think they'll try and stop them to the time that they had down on the main peloton. They will just leave them go on. It's really between the big favourites. But again, you have to remember the safety of the gruppetto, the bus back there, because there's riders who will want to go down quickly. If the time limit is getting, you know, a little bit dangerous, well, then they're going to really push on. And
I'm thinking of Nasser Bouhanni. He's in the red jersey. He wants to stay in. He has to stay in.
You have to remember everybody in this race.
Exactly. Brilliant point, well made. We'll see how it plays out. As you were watching this live, of course. Dario Cataldo made the move. There's somebody who wants to come and join him. In the meantime, we saw the rest of those who are out in the latest evolved section of the break. Motorbikes being ushered past numerously. Cataldo's there, looks around, wonders what's going on. It's that sort of confusion on the road as well. It's not just dealing with the stage, it's dealing with, hang on guys, what's going on here? There is confusion all over the place.
Well, there's so many motorbikes coming by at each side. Cataldo's a bit confused. There's a riders in between, and you know, he's looking left and right on a number of occasions. But I think he's looking for somebody, hoping somebody will come across. As we can see, Rosa and Villamos here just trying to get across, but I think they're all going to be swallowed up by the main peloton pretty quickly.
All about the Cima Coppi and the prize for the first time over it as well. That's what Dario Cataldo will be thinking of. The Trofeo Torriani, given out at each time over the Cima Coppi, the highest point of the Giro, named after Vincenzo Torriani, the patron of the Giro, who passed away back in 1996. First winner was Enrico Zaina in 96. Had the likes of Eras winning this trophy, Cunego, Frigo, Ivan Basso, Manuele Sella, Johan Chop, Mikel Nieve, Tom de Gent and Vincenzo Nibali last year. Dario Cataldo wants to win the Cima Coppi this time out. And as well, there are those 40 points for the King of the Mountains competition as well. This is pretty unbelievable racing. See a little ring there for Cataldo, you'd expect nothing less. One of many layers on, the raincoat trying to take the cold away, trying to take the wet, damp conditions away from his bodies. It's going to be such a hard job for these riders, trying to stay healthy over the next few days as well. Not just physical, but mental forces put to the test. Remember, you must remember the job of everybody working at race radio and the commissaires, not trying to just ensure the safety of the peloton, but everybody in the cars as well. It's a huge, huge caravan. We've heard it described as a circus today by Tosh van der Sande. Try and do that blind as well.
Yes, we can see the circus there. The BMC car just pushing to get up to his riders, and Philip Dignan from Sky there just on the rear of the peloton, and you know, he is just hanging on in there, and you know, the car just pushing a little bit, and that's the director sportifs. You know, they all want to get up and just give something if there's a rider calling for something and you want to get there quickly. It's total confusion out here.
Cataldo, look at the expression on his face. Been a lot of talk about the peloton hipster beards this year, but I think we'll be thankful for it today. Any sort of warmth. We've seen Niemiec chasing behind. Vujamo still in this group. Franco Pelizzotti's been in and around as well. It looks to me to be Pantano. Second wheel down the left with the luminous yellow bike, black raincoat. Riders under the snow, on top of Europe at the minute. It's the second highest mountain road pass in Europe, supposedly. One of the most mythical roads in professional cycling. I think today, whatever happens, will go down in history. We've had awful conditions before. Remember 1988, grown men crying at the top. Horrible, horrible viewing for anybody that was there. Likes of Giuseppe Martinelli were talking about that yesterday, saying that it's a memory that, unfortunately for them, sticks out in their mind. Even those that didn't have to ride it, just witnessed the carnage that went on that day. There are going to be some sore bodies, some very, very sore bodies. And as you said before, just eats away at your will to be even out on a bicycle at the minute.
And we haven't seen Arredondo making a move, not looking good for him at the moment, unless he's just, you know, playing it and waiting, and in this group being pulled along by Tinkoff-Saxo, but normally he makes his move quite a bit out, and this is where, you know, for the mountain classification, we can see, you know, some of the riders that have been up there earlier on today. As you mentioned, Pantano, that some of the guys, you know, will mark up very valuable and big number of points for the KOH.
There is Pantano. Newspapers being handed out. Very own pink newspapers, Gazzetta dello Sport. Remember, they'll put them on the chest, anything. If you've no time to put a rain jacket on or whatever, you've got to put something on your chest, Sean. Stop that wind getting to you.
Yes, and everything helps, and you know, we will see a lot of the riders trying to grab the newspaper as you get to the summit and you know, stuff it up under your jersey, but to be able to do that, I think some riders will have difficulty, because with the big gloves, cold hands, it's going to be a struggle to do it.
Cataldo. Struggling on. It's a lonely, lonely ride for him up there at the moment. And again, even back in the group, there won't be too much being said between the guys. Everybody in their own little world of pain here. 1 kilometer to go to the top of the Passo dello Stelvio. Pantano's the man out on the pedals, pushing it along. He's a mountain man, but he normally rides up the warm Andes. Not the Alps, that at the minute look like they are in winter conditions. Spanish fans on the side of the road. We've seen the Basques flags all over the place as well. A new rain jacket, gilet tie. Oh, it was one of our friends from the Basque Country. There he is with his Ikurriña, the national flag of the Basque Country, the orange of Euskaltel Euskadi. I think we'd normally be seeing orange jerseys right up the front today if they were still in existence. Soigneurs at the top, ready with some rain jackets up towards the top, and we're ready for a crowning of the Cima Coppi. Look at this. It's been a treacherous jersey even for the fans today. Crikey Cadell, the croc, he's up there at the top waiting. Not quite Queensland weather for him, is it? Dario Cataldo then. Another Basque supporter there. A few hundred metres to go for him to take 40 points for the King of the Mountain and be named as the winner of the Cima Coppi 2014. It's cold, it's wet, it's miserable, but there's a prize at the end of it for Dario Cataldo here. The banks of snow around him. We didn't get the sunshine as we wish, but Cataldo at the minute riding off to those 40 points for the King of the Mountain, riding off to the Cima Coppi and the Trofeo Torriani as he attempts to go over before anybody can follow him. 150 metres. English fans on the side of the road as well. Something for Team Sky finally. Can Cataldo carry it on though? It's going to be interesting to see how, if this descent is neutralised. Aussie supporters are there as well, but it's all about the Italian for the British team here. Dario Cataldo past his national flag, into the final 25 metres of an epic climb of the Passo dello Stelvio. And Dario Cataldo comes off to take Cima Coppi. Now, zip up, stay warm, stay safe. That is the message to everybody out here on the road. Time ticks by. So 40 points for Dario Cataldo. Alexandre Genier. Knowledgeable, they know who he is. Shouts for him. Now we're seeing Pantano come over. Second there, I think. Takes a bottle. And how do they approach it? In fact, this looks to be Pantano, pardon me. So looking for a 2 and 3. Guillermo came over. Certainly looked to be him, but again, underneath all these raincoats, underneath the glasses, it is so hard to distinguish the riders. We'll get confirmation in just a minute. Somebody just tweeted in, yes, this is misery on the Stelvio. Absolute misery. Even for those who pick up the prizes, this is a hard ride, a horrible ride. Pantano goes straight through, doesn't want any dinner. Now then, how do they approach this? Interesting to see what images we get on the way down. Bikes on the side of the road. This is Cataldo taking the Cima Coppi. We've got to remember all the crazy fans who've been up there on their own bikes. And they're not paid to do so. Now, stopping here, Alexandre Genius just shows Sean the importance of dressing up properly. It's even worth stopping for a couple of seconds, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is. And, you know, when you're cold, it's so difficult to get your rain jacket on with the big gloves as well. So just stop for a moment and just wrap up well, because I think it's so important that you make sure you're wrapped up as much as possible to get down this one, because it is a long descent here, plus 25 kilometers, as we can see riders. A lot of riders stopping here at the top with the team helpers and getting rain jackets and extra jerseys on.
Jackets, jerseys, newspapers, bottle of tea, whatever you can to keep yourself healthy. Gorka Aguirre comes through there. There's Nairo Quintana. Jacket back on. Down we go. Wherever you're watching, cross your fingers. Let's hope everybody gets down here safe and we can have a final climb. These are the conditions. And this is our leader, Dario Cataldo. It's atmospheric on its own, isn't it? So these are the gaps. Are these going to be maintained at the finish? And at the bottom of the descent, we shall see. Robinson Chalapud coming in second place there. .3 Ks to go. Respect, admiration. An epic day of professional cycling. Again, cross your fingers, we want everybody down this descent safely. Quick break for us. The Gavia's been climbed. We've been over the Stelvio. The highest point of the Giro d'Italia was indeed the Stelvio this year. Cima Coppi on our way down from that now. Riders descending. Again, we heard those airs, those chats on race rate about neutralising descent. Sean, it's hard to see how they can do this, isn't it?
Yes, well, it's very difficult to implement, and of course, when you go on the climb there, the race organisers via race radar, they start, maybe talking about yes, possibly neutralising on the descent, but there's teams very much against that, and there's teams for it. So it's very difficult when the race is on, very difficult to implement it out there at the top of the climb. And also, if you have to stop the riders for a moment, or control at the end, if Cataldo, he had 40 seconds on the chase, or whatever the case may be, at the bottom of the descent, if you have to start off giving these time gaps again, it's total confusion. I don't think it's happening. We cannot see anything.
Well, we're seeing that with Roberto Reverberi there, saying that Mauro Vegni said this, Mauro Vegni said that. Vegni's the man who's in charge of everybody out here on the Giro, the organiser, and even the director of sportives there don't really know what's going on, Sean.
Well, we've seen it before. It's always a problem. It's confusion and just totally impossible really to implement.
We're hearing that Ivan Basso reached the top of the Stelvio 4.5 minutes after the main group. Another lot of time lost for him today, and again, you'd almost respect anybody as well. You would not call anybody for sitting up and getting off here at all. This is crazy, absolutely crazy. Hat off and admiration for everybody that's still on the bike, certainly. Dario Cataldo at the front. There's the race car in front as well. And these are our supporters at the finish. Dangerous job for all the motos and cameramen as well. Actually, just there who have Domenico Pozzovivo back in the group, Alexis Guglielmo out here at the front. Dario Cataldo leads the race at the minute, though. Sky looking for something epic. Well, they've had an awful time of it so far. If Cataldo could pull something off today, Sean, then it really would be remembered for a long, long time, and you have to say it would make Sky's Giro, wouldn't it?
Yes, well, I think whoever wins the stage here today, you know, it will be an epic stage, and it really will be remembered for quite a while. You know, we'll talk about it for years to come, and of course, Sky struggling in this Giro, not getting the results they would be like, and other results maybe we're expecting to see them put up. If he can do this one today, well, then it will make Giro for them.
Certainly would. And then we climb again to above 2,000 metres, and of course on the climb, Sean, it's going to be the third hard climb of the day. We had the 3 first category climbs, the hardest climbs in professional cycling in terms of categorization, in the Giro d'Italia at least. 1, 2, 3 and 4 here, no such thing as an all category climb on the Giro d'Italia. Again, we go above 2,000 metres, and when you go above 2,000 metres, the air and your body starts to behave in a different way, doesn't it?
Yes, well, first of all, you know, when you go to that altitude, in the conditions we're in today, it's going to make it so much more difficult again. I suppose the finish here in Val Martello, you know, on the way up, you're climbing all the time, and that is something which, you know, if you can get to that climb and you're not really the cold's got into you, well, you know, you're in a good position. Then it's all about how much you have energy you've got left for the final climb of the day. The problem is on the Stelvio, as it was back on Gavia, you get to the top and you have to make these horrible descents, and you know, long ones. You know, you can get cold on the descent, and so difficult to heat up. And this descent, you know, over 25 kilometers, if you start getting really cold on this one and it gets into you, well, then you go on to the final climb of the day and you might never really warm up, and then you cannot perform, of course. So it's going to be so important that, yeah, if you can wrap up enough and keep warm on this one and get onto the final climb, they'll be not too concerned about it, because finishing on the top, they will be able to keep warm on the way up. But it's all about how you arrive at the bottom slopes or the final climb of the day.
Cataldo pedalling that descent there didn't look very neutralised to me. We're going to have to see the time gaps at the bottom. This is the chasing group behind Guglielmo. There is Cataldo. I'll tell you what, that's not a neutralised descent for you, is it?
No, it's certainly not, when you consider the conditions out there. You know, the technical corners all the way down here, as we can see here, you have to knock off your pace so much because of the wet roads, and there's nothing nice about this.
Off for a quick break. 60 kilometres to go on stage 60. First time gaps, and there is no doubt now that Dario Cataldo has really gone for it on the descent. If there was supposed to be a neutralisation, well, he's either ignored it or nobody told him, because he has a gap of 1 minute and 6 seconds over the chasing group. It was 18 seconds at the top. Whatever happens here, Sean, you get the feeling that there's going to be a bit of a discussion. There needs to be a discussion at the very top level of the sport. We've had heads of teams tweeting to say they're unhappy about this today. Of course, we've had all this confusion about the neutralisation. Somebody really has to take control and have a proper conversation, a grown-up conversation about this at the end of this Giro.
Well, I think there will be a lot of conversation going on because of the the stage today, the weather conditions, the dangers the riders are taking out here, and I think he's pushing it a bit too much. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that we get through and nobody does have a fall on the descent. And looking at the way they're going down here, there's nothing neutralised about this, because Cataldo out front, he's really, pushing out the corners, really getting back up to his speed again after knocking it down quite a lot, trying to get around those corners. And we can see the riders chasing here, and it'll be interesting as the peloton come down. We can see here there's riders, gaps everywhere between groups coming down. That doesn't look like there's anything neutralised. And if the organisers do say at the bottom, well, we're going to take the time advantage now to Cataldo and the rest, they're not going to be happy. Cataldo's not going to be happy. He wants to continue on, because when you're in that motion, you just want to continue working at it.
There's the Maglia Rosa, there's the leader of the race, Rigoberto Urán. We haven't seen much of him today. Again, brakes very much on, takes his time around the corner. A lot of riding still to be done after today in the Giro d'Italia, remember. Zoncolan, Montegrappa, Rifugio Panarotta. 3 hugely important hill mountain stages, one of them a mountain time trial. Again, it's certainly not worth taking any undue risk today. And of course on the climb as well, anything can happen. Cataldo on the left, Guglielmo I think it is on the right. How do you take the corner? Making sure you watch that wall, that's how you do it. Here's Urán. Again, spent most of yesterday sleeping. Did a bit of climbing on his bike. Interesting to note that any descents yesterday, he got out and did them in the car. I think he did about 30 kilometres on his bike. Some riders even chose not to go out in the weather, it was that bad, and just do a day on the rollers. It was very much up to personal choice. And Sean, when you get to the final week of the Grand Tour, it's all about balancing of having the need to spin your legs and getting the rest you need, I suppose.
Well, the rest is very important, but also important to get out and turn the legs a bit. But if the weather conditions is not suitable, well then that is a big problem for the riders, because when you go out in the wet conditions, if you only go out for an hour and a half, it just have an effect the following day. So some riders prefer, of course, to go on the rollers. And as we know from the rest days, normally the riders most like to do an hour and a half minimum, maybe 2 hours for some, but it's all dependent on the weather conditions and the cold as well. If it's really cold, they do not go on out there. It's bad enough having to go out on the race days without having to go on the rest day and taking the risk of catching a cold.
56.8 kilometres to go. Still a descent from the Stelvio, and we have the final climb to Val Martello, the Martel Tal, coming up as soon as we hit the valley. Back up to 2,000 metres, descending upon me to 661. Just down to Coldrano. So 56.5 kilometres to go. Everyone, welcome back, everybody. You're watching the Giro d'Italia at stage 16 here on Eurosport, the home of cycling. 54 kilometres to go, and we're with Dario Cataldo. So much confusion out there today. Certainly something we're not confused about is how dangerous this is and how much of a task this is for the riders. He's taken on this descent after we heard that it was supposed to be neutralised by the organisers. I'm not sure the riders were in agreement. I'm not sure they all knew what was going on. But Cataldo really pulling out a gap at the bottom. He's almost got 3 minutes on the Maglia Rosa group. There are a couple of small groups chasing in between. Sean, if he gets to the bottom here, takes on the climb, what sort of a gap does Cataldo, a fairly decent climber, need to really be able to challenge for the stage?
Well, it's so difficult to make the calculation today.
I'm putting you really on the spot.
With the weather conditions, they can be just, so many surprises here, and there will be some surprises, that's certain. Cataldo, I think he is the one who supports the weather conditions. He looks to be in good shape at the moment, but it's a long way, still 53 kilometres. And when you get down to the bottom, there is a section where it just levels out a bit before it goes down to tackle the final climb of the day, which is over 22 kilometres. But the chasers are the ones that, you know, we can see there 50 seconds off, then another group at 1:18 and 2:55. It's certainly not over for the main peloton and the big favourites, because I think 2:55 is a slim advantage for Cataldo. You know, he's going to have to make the effort out here. But again, the big favourites, will they be as aggressive on the final climb as they normally would be in normal weather conditions? That is the question as well. But I think 2:55, it's going to be difficult for Cataldo to hold on out there, even back to the big favourites.
Gianluca Brambilla here, been riding really well for Rigoberto Urán. Actually went out to ride with Rigoberto Urán for around 30 kilometres yesterday. And there is the leader of the race, pink bars and all. Thankfully he's gone for the pink bars, but the only way we can identify him on a day like today. Even his flowing locks camouflaged by the black rain jacket. Now then, behind the scenes, it's getting very interesting. Danny Sanchez, who works for Movistar team as one of their PR and press guys, has just alerted the cycling media to the fact that the Giro d'Italia actually tweeted that there was going to be a neutralization. Now they've seen that hasn't been put into effect, they've gone and deleted the tweet as if it never happened, and everybody's recognising this is going to rumble on into the night, whatever happens here. For the minute, we will tell you the story, of course, try our best to concentrate on the racing. Nobody knows what's going on. It's pretty plain to see, isn't it?
Well, as is the norm in situations, we've seen it in the past, and I suppose one of the ones last year we seen in the Tour of France when we had the problem with the Orica Green Edge bus at the finish. It was changed, it was going to be 3 kilometres out, then it was changed back to the original finish, and you know, the riders came in and there were so many riders didn't know. Some thought they were finishing at 3 kilometres, others never heard anything about the problem at the finish. So you can imagine here today as well, you know, there's so much discussions going on between the riders and talking about this neutralise. But again, as we mentioned on the climb of the Stelvio, so difficult to neutralise. When the race is on out, there's a breakaway out in front, it's very, very difficult to put into motion. If you had all the peloton of big favourites, 30, 40 riders together, well then you probably could do something about it. But when there's a breakaway, like Cataldo, he knows he's in the driving seat here. This is his opportunity to try to go on. He can pull out a lot of time, as he's doing on the descent. So those guys certainly do not want to stop after making the effort of being out in the breakaway for a long time before.
It is one of the most political sports on the planet. We love it for it as well.
Well, if it was tennis, we'd just pull the plastic and go and drink a coffee.
We're here though. We are here, 50 kilometres to go. Plenty more of that coming up this week, of course. We have the French Open live on Eurosport. At the minute, we're on the roads of Italy. Giro d'Italia, inside the last 50 kilometres. Dupont, Pantano and Vujamo. Look at that. Again, with all the will in the world and all the best materials, you talked about the evolution of materials. There comes a time in weather such as this that you stop feeling your hands.
Yes, well, you know, there is so much vast improvement in the quality of the clothing, as we've talked about earlier on, but still you get cold in the conditions that they're getting out there today. As in the beginning of season, you know, when we have the classics and that, you get the horrible weather conditions, 2 and 3 degrees, raining all day, you're going to, you know, get frozen. Your body's going to get frozen, especially your hands and your feet, and we can see there, you know, the riders have difficulty, you know, just trying to keep a bit of warmth in the hands. No matter what material you've got, you're still going to get the days where it's not good enough.
Hairpins, plenty of those to come on the way up. Just counted, there are 8 hairpins in the last kilometre of today's stage. It certainly is spectacular on the eye. Ran in front. We haven't seen Quintana for a while. I know that there's a bit of talk at the minute on the airwaves that Quintana may well have been distanced on the descent, but unless we have the concrete time gaps, we cannot bring that to you. 90 kilometres into the stage today. Started in Ponte di Legno, slight descent, and then the torture began. Passo Gavia, Passo dello Stelvio, down into the valley now, into Alto Adige. This is a bilingual region of Italy. South Tyrol, once upon a time belonging to Austria. German still the first language around here. Dario Cataldo certainly is racing. So much to race for, and again, as we saw the other day, with Cataldo going out front here, whatever gap he has, Sean, if the race is really lit up as we suspect it is behind, then it's not going to help him, is it? Because people will really be playing catch-up, won't they?
Yes, well, I think, you know, out there on your own here, with the advantage we're getting, you know, of recent, it's going to be very difficult to see him holding on. But the weather conditions, and I suppose he will be thinking about that, the other big favourites, they don't have as many team helpers, domestiques with them, and that can play into Cataldo, who's the lead on the road. That's what he's hoping, and he's just going to continue here and make as much ground as possible in this section before we get to the final climb.
47.1 k's to go. Well, we clean that lens up, we'll go off for a coffee ourselves. See you in just a couple of minutes. Here we go with Movistar riders coming down the mountain on the way down from the Passo dello Stelvio on Giro d'Italia. Final climb is just over 20 kilometers. Still quite a bit of descent to go though yet. Dario Cataldo's out in front. He has a very good gap, almost up at 4 minutes on the pink jersey of Rigoberto Urán. At the minute though, of course, trying to get time gaps on every single group. We keep seeing Movistar riders from the air. None of those two look like Nairo Quintana though. This is Dario Cataldo. The one thing is certain, he is at the front of the race here. A lot of people asking about Cadel Evans. Haven't seen a shot of him for a number of time. It's the Giro PR department doing the best to repair the neutralization rumour by sending out tweets now saying that no, we're not doing that. A right old mess. Director Sportifs talking, tweeting. We've seen the images as well. A lot of confusion. It's been a right mess. There's still a race to race for, both on GC and for the stage. Back to the likes of Pierre Roland and Nairo Quintana. Quintana there, just gesturing with his hands, moving to the back of the group alongside Pierre Roland. Well, Quintana seemingly wanting to talk himself up to Pierre Roland as a possible ally. And there was the visual evidence of that. Dupont, Vuillermo and Pantano. What is clear is they're the second group on the road here. There is Alexis Vuillermo, number 19, just taking on a gel. Pantano, who has stage win and king of the mountains points in sight. Everybody talks about 1988, but this is going to be one to tell the grandkids about, isn't it, this sort of stage?
Well, yes, this will be one that'll go on and be discussed about a lot in the next number of years, and it's really one of these rememberable stages, and whoever wins the stage, they will be remembered more because of the weather conditions. And when you think back, on the past, and we talk about, Andy Hampstead and that stage, I think Johan van der Velde was another Dutch driver involved. So, I can remember, hearing about it and the riders talking about it so much, and certainly there will be a lot of talk for many years about this one. And we can see here, there's groups everywhere, and difficult to know exactly. We do know that Cataldo, of course, and then the three chasers. The interesting thing is that the two AGR riders, they are pushing on. Are they trying to, go for the stage victory, or is it a plan for later for Pozzovivo? But I think with the guys they have up there, Villemose and Dupont, they can, have a go for stage victory. And Villemose is, pretty much up in general classification as well. He's not that far off. I think he was about 10 minutes down. So, 10:45 actually down. So that he can, maybe do something in the general classification. But I think stage victory should be the one they're thinking about at the moment.
Politics of that group was interesting. Ryder Heystal at the back saying he wasn't going to come through and do a turn. You had Gorka Izagirre working for Nairo Quintana, and I think it may well have been Roman Sicard. We'll double check that for Europe Car, working for Pierre Roland. What is clear is the two leaders had a chat, Sean. They said, right, the two guys we have are going to work for us both, and we're going to work together here.
Yes, Well, it looked like that Quintana was trying to get Pierre Roland to come and do a bit of pulling on the front, but I don't think that's going to happen, so we'll have to wait and see. As we can see here, yes, Sica, Rabottini, Hejdal, that is the group. And the interesting one is second chasing group was... are they ahead of Cadel Evans? Are they ahead of Uran? We haven't got any information on that, because the first chasing group, of course, would be Villemot, Dupont and Pantano. So it looks like that Quintana is in a really good position if that's the true picture here. But I'm totally confused here, because there's riders and groups everywhere.
Well, now second chasing group, that is very interesting, because if that is the case, it's a reversal of the rumours that were going through on the airwaves that said that Uran was actually in front of Quintana. If this is the case, then Quintana, no wonder both he and Roland are putting their team and their mates to work and trying to pull out the advantage here, because they're gaining a whole lot of time back on the Maglia Rosa.
Yes, well, it could be either way. If they're out in front, of course, if they push on, they can gain a lot of time. If they're chasing down a group and some of the other favourites, well, they have to get working as well and get their teammates to pull them along. So it is a bit confusing there. I think we have to wait and see, because I would be surprised that Quintana and Pierre Roland, both of them in the wet conditions, I don't see them riding away from Cadel Evans and some of the other favourites in this race.
We shall see. Again, our graphics department telling us that it was the second chasing group on the road, and once more we'll have to wait to verify that, because to do that we'd like to see the other groups as well. 40.6 kilometres to go. Now then, well, if that is indeed the second chasing group on the road, then this is really bad news for Rigoberto Uran, because he is 2 minutes behind Quintana. We're being told that now by our producers, and that they are getting, of course, the live feed from Race Radio as well. So, wow, what a turn up for the books. This Giro stage really has lit up. For the minute, we hope and we're hearing that everybody's safe, which is what we wanted to hear. Nairo Quintana, whisper it, but if this information is correct, and we haven't had entirely correct information today in terms of the time gaps, he is 2 minutes ahead of the pink jersey, 2 minutes behind this man, 4 minutes from front to favourites group. Dario Cataldo in a great position to have a go at winning this stage now, but the GC really is about to be fought for.
Yes, it's it's interesting at the moment with Quintana and Pierre Roland out there. It's a situation I was not expecting. I thought he would be a little bit more difficulty on the descent, but again, the weather conditions, some riders may be feeling very cold on the descent and not descending well, but we can see Pierre Roland and Quintana having a discussion here once again.
Roland rides on, number 191 there. Under the wheel of Gorka Izaguirre is Nairo Quintana on the left-hand side. The Colombian comes onto the wheel of Ryder Hejdal. And what a day it's been for Ryder Hejdal so far as well. Looking down at the time gaps, Hejdal 6:44 back before today. He'll be working his way back into the top 10 if the gaps were to stay similar. Rabottini right at the back in the luminous yellow. Romain Sicard is the other French rider, the Basque rider as well, from the French Basque country in the green of Europe car. We've seen Izaguirre alongside Nairo Quintana. Movistar car comes up alongside them. Quintana, as I said, been struggling with illness, been struggling with that bang to the hip off the crash last week. Now has his family and his very young couple-month-old daughter along at the Giro for company this week. And it looks as though he's putting in a performance of which they'll be very proud. Here's Andre Amador, Costa Rican. A little further back on the road, trying to give his jacket out to somebody there. So difficult, not just for the riders on the road here, or for us in the commentary box, but more importantly, Sean, for all the directeurs sportifs to stay on top of every single group here and manage things.
Yes, well, really difficult, and it's as we have been forecasting, and as it's turning out to be a spectacular day racing here. Unfortunately for the riders, it's going to be such a difficult one, but director sportifs are having difficulty here. Race radio as well, we did hear earlier on the day race radio wasn't functioning well, so yeah, all sorts of problems, not alone trying to give rain jackets, change gloves for the riders. You have to also keep control of what's happening out in the race, and for the teams with the general classification, man, it is going to be a really nervous day for everyone.
Rigoberto Uran on the right hand side there rides on with those pink bars, the pink jersey underneath the black rain jacket, the race leader. Will he still be the race leader at the end of the day? whatever happens, there will be a lot of talking, we've said. Newspapers tomorrow will make very, very interesting reading. Left-hand side, we see the group of Nairo Quintana and Pierre Rolland. Pierre Rolland, 4 minutes 47. Again, not just Quintana who can make his way back. Pierre Rolland can get himself back into the fight for the whole Giro with this sort of gap.
Yes, well, he is in a real good position here now, because when you look at the general classification, he's the one, if he can continue on at the rate and with the time gaps we're getting, he is going to move up a lot in general classification. But the final climb of the day, it's going to be important that he can continue on and still pull out an advantage on the final climb, because back in the group of favourites where we can see there's teammates starting to appear, and if they ride to the climb, well then the other favourites will have that advantage. They'll be a bit fresher coming on to the final climb of the day.
The stickiest of sticky bottles for Pantano Gomez there. Takes a good drink off it. Now, that's got something warm in it, hasn't it?
Yes.
Warm the legs up, not just warm the inner body up.
Yes, and it looks like tea, and of course it does help to put it on the legs to warm up a little bit.
Now then, with the gaps on the road as they stand, Uran would lead Quintana by just 40 seconds. Evans, 1 minute and 3 back, so he's in the same group as Uran. Rafał Majka at 1:50. Aru is in the Uran group as well, because he stays at 2:24. So those of you worrying about Aru, worrying about Majka and worrying about Evans, the good news from that graphic, at least, even though we haven't seen them visually on the screen, is they're in the same group as, of course, our leader Rigoberto Uran. 35.2 kilometers to go. Just trying to make sense of everything that's going on the road here. What is clear is that this is Nairo Quintana riding himself into second place in the Giro d'Italia. Long, long way to go, though, still. And, of course, a more numerous group with some very talented climbers behind. However, as we said before, a Rolland and Quintana partnership would be a very, very strong one on this next climb. There is Alexis Vuillermoz. What's happened to his team leader, Domenico Pozzovivo? Again, we assume he is with the group behind, and we certainly hope so for the interest in the race. Now then, we're seeing Directeur Sportifs, Ramati and company, shouting, chatting. This is going to rumble on, rumble on. This is Rigoberto Uran. Takes on some food. Okay, we'll talk about the Val Martello climb when we come to it. It's hard enough in itself. We've talked about the legendary Passo Gavia, mythical Passo dello Stelvio, but a brand new climb that is ridiculously hard as well. Now then, 1 minute for Vuillermoz, 1:50 for Quintana, which suggests that this group is still advancing. What's happening behind, though? Waiting for those time gaps. This is the second chasing group. Hejdal, Izagirre, Rolland, Quintana, Rabottini and Sika. Rabottini at 14:25, not really a danger anymore for the pink jersey. And again, a lot of people suggesting, well done to Ronaldo for writing to us on Twitter. Remember, hashtag Eurosport Cycling at RobHatchTV. If Rad Hejdal hadn't been involved in that very unfortunate Garmin incident back in Belfast, then he'd be looking very, very high up on GC at the minute.
Yes, well, we always go back and look at the team time trial and where they lost time, crashes and all that, so that is going to be possibly a discussion at the end of the day. And if this group of the 6 riders with Quintana and Pierre Rolland goes on with Hejdal to the finish and takes quite an advantage from the rest of the favourites, we will be going back and looking where the guys lost time through bad luck and crashes and all of that. But we can see here 3:40 back to that Moya Rosa group. It is getting organised there. We can see there's 2 Omega Pharma Quick Step riders pulling on the front, so that is going to be an interesting one, how strong they are and how close they can get before we get onto the real steep part of the climb. But Uran, how good is he as well? And this group is growing. We can see now there's a lot of riders appearing. I think it's growing bigger all the time.
Rigoberto Uran, pink jersey. Tinkoff-Saxo with Rafał Majka in there. Remember, they'll be disappointed after what they will now see as wasted energy on that climb. They were really going for it if there has been a massive, massive misunderstanding in terms of what we were talking about with the organisers, then there are going to be some serious discussions behind the scenes. Dupont, Pantano and Guglielmo. This is the first chasing group on the road, intermediate sprint. Nobody's worried about that today, I can tell you. Nobody is worried about that. Jackets out, back to the car. Time to get a dry one. One minute and 2 seconds still the gap that Cataldo has on the first group that we saw. This is the second group on the road at the minute, second chasing group that is, with Quintana, Hagedal and Pierre Roland as its notable members. Rabottini behind in the luminous yellow. That's the Garmin Sharp car up alongside them, by the way. And just 44 seconds, pardon me, between the group of the two Ashi Desert riders we saw and Pantano behind these guys as well. So both groups behind getting organised. Quintana gaining on the first chasing group, but behind as well, as we see a problem for the Europe car rider who is Romain Sicard. Done a lot of his work now. He just drops off. So Pierre Roland on his own in terms of not having a teammate with him anymore. The former Euskaltel-Euskadi man has done the job. And this is the second chasing group as it looks. Roland, the only Europe car rider left. Gorka Izagirre is still there for Nairo Quintana, alongside rider Hagedal, Matteo Rabottini. That's a fairly decent climbing group, isn't it, if they come to the climb together?
Yes, it is it's a strong climbing group, and we can see Movistar, Izagirre is really pushing on here. Sicard, after doing his best, and just peels off and started to lose contact immediately. But back in the bunch, it's still Omega Pharma Quick-Step with Tinkoff-Saxo securing the pace here, and it's going to be a real interesting final here with this long climb, 22 kilometers after what they've been through already out here today. It's going to be a real killer and a real hard one for everybody. But we can see Quintana and Roland, Hagedal there in a real good position here, because they have the advantage, which is I'm still surprised that they got away on the descent, because Quintana, of course, I would not expect him to ride away from that group, but he's actually, he's done that. And when we were getting, information that he was in front of the pink jersey by X amount of time, I was, wondering, was that correct information? But we see it is, and he's done a fabulous descent, as Pierre Roland has done.
That's Fabio Aru there, yeah. After all the erroneous information that everybody's received today, I think we did receive that with certain caution. There's Cadel Evans in the red jacket, black helmet. This is Wilco Kelderman. What a ride he is having as well. 31.2 kilometers to go. We're going to go for our final commercial break, then come back with all the fun. If you're not watching, if you've got friends who aren't watching, tell them to watch now. This is going to be epic. Back in a minute. A day without precedent on the Giro d'Italia. This is huge in all sorts of different ways. We've seen awful conditions, epic bits of riding, confusion, rules, non-rules. But it's all coming down to this. It's happening out there on the road. This is the second chasing group. Nairo Quintana is in it. And if you have just switched on, he has a decent gap on the Maglia Rosa group. This is Rigoberto Urán, Fabio Aru, Rafał Majka, Cadel Evans and the rest. Quintana is in front. How he got there, we don't know. Whether there was confusion about the neutralization, whether he was just better in attack, which we didn't seem to be a thought, or whether he went straight over the top and others stopped to put rain jackets on. We don't know. Nobody seems to know that out in the race, not even the director of Sportives. What we do know is that Dario Cataldo is out there in front, and he's not far off starting the final climb now. In down to the Val Venetosa at the bottom. And we're about to head up to the Val Martello for the first time in Giro history. Already into bilingual country, Silandro and Flanders. It's a special, magical part of Italy. Gateway to the Dolomites, Alto Adige. Beautiful, beautiful region. Whether you're cycling or skiing or whatever, make sure you visit. Fingers crossed that you get better weather than today. So the first and the second chasing groups become one. Guglielmo and Dupont alongside Pantano are caught by Pierre Roland and Rabottini. Nairo Quintana, and of course the man alongside them who is from Garmin, who is Ryder Hagestad, former winner of the Giro d'Italia. Uran's group behind getting organised, but still almost a good couple of minutes behind these guys. As it stands, Quintana will be getting himself into second position, right back into the Giro d'Italia. And what was already a strong climbing group, Sean, has become even stronger now with the addition of Vouillamont and Dupont behind.
Yes, well, the problem is for Quintana and Pierre Rolland, I think Vouillamont and Dupont, they're not going to do any riding. As we can see here, some of the riders almost continues on straight on instead of hanging the left. But
it's been that sort of day, hasn't it?
Yes, it has been that sort of day. You know, total confusion, chaos all the day. But yeah, they're not going to ride the two AGR men. They are going to, you know, hang back now and they're just going to follow this this group of Quintana and Pierre Rolland. The interesting one is back in that group of Uran, Cadel Evans. There's a lot of riders we can see. Tinkoff-Saxo. We can see a number of teams riding on the front. So, of course, Omega Pharma, Quickstep, Astana, they're all contributing now. So that's going to, you know, I think pull down the advantage. And we can see here this section, it's a flatter section before we get onto the climb. And that's where the chasing group of pink jersey is going to, you know, ease into the advantage of all the riders out in front. But again, Quintana, he has the advantages. He's out in front at the moment. And if he goes onto the climb with, you know, a minute ahead of the other big favourites, well, then that's a huge advantage. And to pull that back is going to be a difficult one for the other favourites of this race.
Well, the final climb to Val Martello, the Martel Tal, starts at 22.35 kilometres to go. Begins with a 3.4% gradient, goes up to an average of 8.5, maxes out at 14% twice inside the final few kilometres, and once inside the very final kilometre. This was the calamitous moment that was just about avoided. Thankfully, spectators and cyclists, everybody safe. But a second or two wasted there. Every second counts here for Nairo Quintana. And Pierre Rolland, let's not forget. This is Dario Cataldo. His mission to save Sky's Giro and to write his own name into the history books of not just epic cycling, but one of the days that will never, ever be forgotten. Not necessarily for all the right reasons, but as a day when some people got things very wrong. It's a day when a lot of guys were extremely brave, and it's a day when whoever wins will have their name down as one of the most epic cycling champions of any stage of any Grand Tour. Maglia Rosa Group, leader of the race, Rigoberto Uran's behind. Remember, whatever you think about today, please let us know. Let's get hashtag Eurosport Cycling trending. Remember, tweets, questions to the commentary box to myself or Sean at RobHadgeTV. Rabottini at the back there for Neri Sottoli. Done a lot of waiting. There's Eusebio Nsue himself. Today's race is so important that the big boss is in town out the car. Chat with Nairo Quintana. 1 minute 27 behind Dario Cataldo. And again, for any man out on his own here, Sean, 1 minute 27 going on a climb that is over 22 kilometres long is pretty hard, isn't it?
Yes, and the unfortunate situation is that Quintana and Pierre Rolland got out of the main peloton. If they had not been, you know, out in front, I think things would be much calmer back at base in the big peloton of riders, and he would put out, you know, a much bigger advantage. And we can see, you know, the other ones who are chasing, I don't think they would be as big a threat. But with Pierre Rolland and Quintana, you know, really wanting to push on now to hold out as much an advantage, or maybe pull out more of an advantage on this final climb, for Cataldo is going to be real difficult.
Evgeny Petrov, his birthday the other day, on Sunday, riding at the front, former winner of a Giro stage, and one of the more talked about stages in the last few years, as well as some help is being given. Oh, it's nice from Ryder Hagestad. Having a problem himself here. Trying to keep the group going in front. Helping Vouillamont get on. It's in everybody's interest that he does get on, isn't it?
Yes, well, I think Ryder Hagestad wanted to go to the car there. He wanted to, I think, offload any excess clothing he had. He seems to be getting some gels as well. And now is the time, as well, 22 kilometres to the finish, of course. That 20 kilometres, you can take some things from the car. But and he wanted to get it done quickly as well. We could see him giving the little hand sling to two riders there and he wants to keep this group, you know, working together. But we'll have to see. I'd be surprised if we see the two AG2 All Mondial riders, you know, really pushing on here, because Pozzo Vivo, I think they will be really thinking about him and not wanting this group to, you know, to pull out any more of an advantage.
1:33 behind is this group on the road. For the first time since we started racing today, it's dry. Even the roads are drying up. Slightly better weather at the finish today rather than early on. Now then, Gorka Izagirre, well, a few choice words in Spanish there. They weren't pretty pleasant. Wanted to try and push on, but saw that nobody was following.
Yes, and we could see Pierre Rolland. He was just, you know, pushing on, trying to get back to Izagirre, and the two AGR men. He tried to just, you know, give the hand signal to come around, but they are just, you know, riding in his slipstream, and I think we're going to see more of that. And that is the problem here. There's some riders with big interest to push on as much as possible. Other ones are going to just try and hang on and get up this climb as much as possible and spare energy as much as they can.
Horrible day for the riders, one that they'll remember for many reasons today. What was your worst ever day on a bike in terms of weather?
Well, I think there is days when you're not in a good shape and you get really bad conditions. That is the most horrible day. If you're really in good shape, you support it a bit better, and you know, you're really focused, and it's all about the mentality as well. If you're up for it and you're focused and you're concentrating on the day, you're thinking about it, you know, a day or two before, well, then the weather conditions doesn't have as, you know, much of a problem mentally and physically. But if you're not in the race, well, then it's so difficult. And I think riders that are suffering here, that you know, have injuries, are carrying injuries and trying to go on, when you get a day like this, so difficult to continue.
I think, going back to your book, you were writing about a particularly bad day on the Tour of Flanders. Was one of the worst days you ever experienced. Yes,
well, one of the bad days, riding bad weather, everything was bad on that occasion.
.9 kilometres to go. We're on the final climb. This is the Maglia Rosa group. A lot of favourites still in here. They're getting time and gaining time all the time. It's fairly sizable, as you can see. You know why Movistar aren't doing any work, because this man's up the front. They're still a good minute and 40 seconds behind Nairo Quintana, though, who's doing his best to get himself right back in this Giro d'Italia. Already approaching his better terrain. Feeling a little better from his cold. He had that cotton wool in his ear yesterday morning. Tried to keep warm, and you can tell now he's ready for business.
Yes, he's just getting rid of everything. He's even taken off his eyewear. We could see there he's grabbing a few gels, look like gels, possibly energy bars, but at this point I think it would be more the gels they would be using. And you can see he's stripped off short sleeves already, so he is going to go for battle, and it looks like that, you know, he will try and, you know, continue on pulling out his advantage. But back in the group there of pink jersey, Rigoberto Urán, there's a lot of teams. We can see Belkin as well getting involved. So, you know, quite a number of teams wanting to chase, but still, you know, that's that advantage. 125 to the chasing group, 308 back to the pink jersey. So it's quite a good advantage for Pierre Rolland. And let's not forget Ryder Hydesdale as well. He's doing a good performance. If he can hang in there with the other two and take a bit of time, he will also move big time up general classification.
Everybody's about to get a lot warmer. The work is starting to begin. Wet caps come off. Rain jackets are dispensed with. You only use what you need now. Climbing serious style is going to see this stage 1-0 loss. This is Dario Cataldo, 1 minute and 23 in front of the group you just saw on your screen. Now the confusion's rumbled on. Bart Leysen from Lotto Belisol, the director sportif, has actually told Belgian television now that the supposed neutralization was not called on the race radio. So who's come up with that tweet? And whoever was following that tweet somehow got the message out to certain directeurs sportifs and other bits of media. That could well be the source of the confusion. I'm sure it'll rumble on all the night anyway. That's the latest episode. This is Cataldo, though. Can he pull off Sky's first win of this Giro d'Italia? It's going to be a big ask. Certainly with those chasing behind, you wouldn't give him much hope. Izagirre then in his latest attempt to push things on. His team leader's right at the back of this group. Hayesdale's ready. Pantano behind. Pantano, remember, having taken a lot of points for the King of the Mountain today. trying to put himself in the blue jersey. 1:19 for Cataldo. So looking at this climb, Sean, we've got the first 6-7 kilometres where we've got an average of around 8.5%. Then there's a false flat, even a slight descent for the next kilometre or so, kilometre and a half, and then it really ramps uphill again. Averages sections of 7.1%, 6.5, and right up to the end the average pokes just under 10%, but we've got a maximum of 14%. After all of the hell that the riders have been through today, it's going to be hard work.
Yes, it is going to be a real difficult one. First of all, the distance. You know, we can see there they're coming on to 20k to go, so and they have been climbing up a little bit and maybe, you know, easing off, but you know, on the race manual it's marked at 21.7 kilometers, the actual climb itself, and there is a little bit of rest periods in it, and they will need all of that because you know, when you get into the steeper sections it does kick up, and in the very end, as we have seen, it's a real killer. The final kilometre is going to be so difficult, but and the day is going to mark a lot of the riders as well. There's wet, cold conditions, the mountains we have climbed, all of that, a combination of that will, you know, really affect some of the general classification. I'll not be surprised if we see some of them who are really up there in a fighting position for a top 5 really losing a lot of time today on this one.
The gloves are off, quite literally, for a lot of the riders. It's not just the metaphor of the fight. Everybody just wants to have the right feel of the bars on the way up here. Pierre Rolland dispensed with his as well. The arm warmers wrapped around the wrists. Nairo Quintana swapped his shades. The sun is finally out. And after all the confusion, all the danger today, we're about to have the real fight on the road, which, to be fair, Sean, what this stage was always going to be about, this final climb.
Yes, it's certainly been a big fight, and it's you know, a fight right from the start, because in the earlier part, when we not be expecting a battle on the descent, we had that in the first climb of the day, and then we went on to the Stelvio, and you know, here we are top of the Stelvio. That confusion, a lot of riders did stop and start putting on their raincoats. I think some of them maybe were under the impression that it was going to be neutralised on the descent.
I think somebody in the PR and tweeting department is going to get fired tonight.
Well, that is going to be the big discussion, and there's going to be a lot of talk of this for many days. And as I was surprised to see Quintana away, maybe he just kept on going over the top and went on, and that's, you know, if the race wasn't neutralised, well, then he is right to do that. But I think there will be so much discussion, and will go on for such a long time about this stage, and what, you know, an interesting stage it's making now, because with Quintana out in front, the other big favourites haven't, you know, to chase here, as we can see. Uran, with a lot of other teams chasing here, they're really going to have to try and, you know, close this gap down on the final climb of the day. So it's probably a different outcome than we would have been expecting, because I was, you know, looking forward to the final climb of the day, the Martello, but it's been action all day.
Action all day, serious action now for Nairo Quintana and company. There's the pink jersey, finally showed off to the sunlight and to the world. Rigoberto Uran, this group going to get smaller all the time now as they reach the climb themselves. They're gaining time, but as are the chasing group of Quintana and Rolland. In fact, the gap back to the pink jersey from Quintana staying fairly stable at the minute. Minute 45. Orders being barked at the front in Colombian Spanish. Is it going to be the big fight between the Colombians that many expected at the start of this Giro? Uran with the Maglia Rosa, Quintana, the man on the hunt, Cataldo, the man in front. 52 seconds. Hard work for him. Huge day. Whatever happens, he will have to be saluted by those armies of Italian fans. And I'm sure we'll get the reception his courageous riding today has very, very much done. Big Uran, a lot of people wondering as to his condition yesterday. Kept himself hidden away. Mick Rogers on the front again. It's the same sort of tactic we saw on Sunday now, Sean. Tinkoff-Saxo, as we saw on the climb to the Stelvio as well today, taking it up. You mentioned that Mr. Micah seems to like these cold conditions, and we're showing that he's feeling strong again today.
Yes, and we have seen Tinkoff-Saxo on the front, you know, earlier on as well. On the climb, they were keeping the pace very high, and it has been the case for many kilometres back in the group of pink jersey, where there's a lot of teams contributing. It looked like Rogers is pushing on, but I think there's other ones there as well. There's some Omega Pharma still around the front there. We can see Astana as well were supporting. Belkin was the other one, and Quintana puts in a deke here.
Here's Quintana then, and he's going to take his mate with him. They talked about it in the press. Overtures were sent. Today, they've had a chat about it on the road, put the plan into action. Quintana on the left, Roland just behind him in the green on the right. The man chasing in the blue is the former Giro winner, Ryder Hejdahl. 1 minute 32 from Quintana to Oran. So there's been a recovery of sorts from the Maglia Rosa. The minute he is staying in pink. But the lead to Quintana will be considerably cut. A lot of work being done by Mikel Landa on the front. Basque rider for Astana. Astana losing a lot of their mountain power very, very early on the first climb today. Pozzovivo still in this group, as is Cadel Evans. Kieślowski behind as well. And this is the main chasing group developing now behind. Interesting that Alexis Vuillermoz has been so strong climbing this week. He's not made it onto the coattails of this move.
No, surprising that he hasn't made it, because I would have expected him. But again, is there a tactic here? We can see the two of them are just dropping back together. So maybe it's orders that to go back to the group and try and, you know, pull this group of favourites along. We can see they're just back to the two of them going back together. So it looks like that it's an organised thing, and they're just going to drop back to that group of pink jersey, which Pozzovivo is in.
Same tactic that we've seen employed 2 or 3 times by Pozzovivo in this Giro d'Italia. There's Cataldo. Oof, not sure I can do it, guys. It is hard work. 22nd now. The next question here for Cataldo is, can he hang on to the group coming past? It's going to be a big ask. Pink jersey group, 2 minutes and 7 behind Cataldo. 10.8% up the front here for the leaders. So this is the first hard section. Gradient doesn't get this high again for another 6-7 kilometres after this small 300-metre section. And Quintana's going to go again. Oh, we sort of suggested that he was coming into his natural terrain, his natural habitat this week. Coming in with quite a big deficit, but to be honest, despite his illness, he's never looked worried, has he? He's always just carried on, done his little bit, dig and dug away, got a bit of time back over the last few days, and here he is. And this, Sean, now I think it's his assault on the Giro d'Italia, isn't it?
Yes, well, he's in the position now. He has to make the assault here, and it's going to be an interesting time this evening. The other teams and the other riders, what will they say about Quintana and Pierre Roland? Because they will say as well, you know, our totals neutralised, but that discussion is going to go on between the riders and between everybody else. But he's out here, and Quintana is being made aware that the group is closing behind the group of pink jersey. As we see, they just catch Cataldo, and unfortunately, you know, we could have forecasted that, because Cataldo, unfortunately, the way the race unfolds behind, the advantage he had against a guy like Quintana, Pierre Roland, the final climb, he had no chance.
Roland, Quintana and Cataldo, 17.6 to go. One minute and 55 to the pink jersey group. Nairo Quintana and Pierre Roland riding their way straight back into this Giro d'Italia. Certainly Quintana, we never counted him out. Pierre Roland, though, is also going to become a serious contender should this situation stay the same. Team Sky Rider, a few of you asking, on the back of the Maglia Rosa group is actually young Sebastian now, the youngest rider in the race. Extremely talented Colombian climber. His cousin, by the way, on his way back into competition, it seems. That as winner Anacona, the Lamprey rider, is being dropped from this Maglia Rosa group. Two riders, two favourites, still have two teammates. Rafael Majka has Mick Rogers in the yellow. And of course Fabio Aru, the number 3 for Astana, winner of the stage in Monte Campione, has Mikel Landa, the former Euskaltel-Euskadi rider, doing work on the front. 8.8% the gradient up for the front of the race at the moment. Chasing group on the lower slopes. There is Mikel Landa on the left-hand side. Mick Rogers just behind him, also a stage winner on this Giro d'Italia. Rigoberto Urán, isolated from Megafarma Quickstep, and that's where all the questions have come about Rigoberto Urán. How good was his team? In the last few days, other teams have had men when Rigoberto Urán has been pretty much isolated, Sean.
Yes, well, I think they look very strong on the medium mountain stages, but in the bigger mountain stages, as we've been coming into this, been having difficulty. And again today, we have seen their Omega Pharma Quickstep have to chase very early because of what happened on the descent here, and the two favourites, the big favourite, let's say Quintana going ahead, and they're having to chase early, pay the price for that. And we can see here that he's alone, Urán, and it's not a good situation. He needs at least one or two teammates to secure a good pace here on the earlier part, still with 16.9 kilometres to go. But luckily there's other teams with interest and keeping the pace. As we can see, it's Astana and Tinkoff-Saxo.
Heysdal, Roland, Quintana and Cataldo. Cataldo at the back, trying to get back onto this group. Biggest word yesterday when Nairo Quintana talked to the press was ally. The next biggest word, and most often word used, was the name of Pierre Roland. He was suggesting this 24 hours ago, and here it is in practice on the road. The Colombian and the Frenchman, the Movistar man and the Europe car rider, trying to put some time into this man. The compatriot of Nairo Quintana, who is the pink jersey wearer, Rigoberto Urán, who's with Kelderman, Landa, Pozzovivo, Evans, Aru, Henao, Rogers, Maika and Kieślowski. It's a group of select favourites. Rabottini being passed on the way up. He's the man in yellow, just being distanced at the bottom of your screen. Quintana's riding. Again, pretty unsightly demonstration of the cold he's been suffering from. Ear infection yesterday. Antibiotics for a few days before that. Bad hip last week, but he's looking good here on the hills. 16.5 Ks left. Still Mikel Landa. 1 minute 38. So there is time being put into the group in front. I think Rigoberto Urán will have both Astana and Tinkoff-Saxo to thank if they recover the situation today.
Well, he has got to thank them anyway, because I think they have done a real good job. The question is now how long more they can keep on doing it for, but they have limited losses up to this point. And when both of them, the Astana man and the Tinkoff-Saxo man, finish up here, well, then it's going to be an interesting situation, because Urán is going to have to really push on, still with over 16 kilometres to go. And Quintana is the one with Pierre Roland who is securing the pace out in front, and they're going to be made aware of that. So it's going to be a question now who've got the most reserve left, and to take it up at this point for Urán back in the that chase of favourites. It is a long way to the finish, and you have to be pretty sure that you do not blow big time before you get to the finish.
There are those two 14-point percentage points, pardon me, on the way up, right in the final third, almost the final quarter of the climb. It gets harder and harder and harder. All those hairpins towards the top as well. This is a climb that's never been used on the Giro d'Italia before. Fabio Aru, all the pressure on him from the great and the good in Sardinia. The whole island is behind him. Just in front of him, Rafał Majka, and in Aru's case now, he's in front of Pozzovivo. The whole of Italy is behind him. The likes of Fondriest, the likes of Cassani, all talking him up yesterday in the press. No pressure, Fabio. But they all think they can win the Giro d'Italia. Do you think he can be up there and win it as a whole, Sean?
Well, I think the performance he put up on Sunday stage was an excellent performance, and he calculated very well, just let the race go on, and when the point presented itself, the opportunity, he just went and got the advantage and held on very strongly, and that's something he was real strong in the end. Today will be a big test for him. The weather conditions and the team have been working for him, but we have to wait a bit more. These long climbs like we have got today, plus 20 kilometres, with a very steep gradient in the end, that is going to be where we will see a clearer picture who's going to be winning this Giro. I think we have it, you know, that picture at the moment, but the rest of the places on the podium we can see, I think, much clearer this evening.
1 minute and 38 back to Rigoberto Urán, the pink jersey. Still Mikel Landa just in front of Mick Rogers. Astana in front of Tinkoff. Two top domestiques doing their jobs for their team leaders. Pozzovivo hoping to attack today. He said that if the cold doesn't get to him, he will attack. In the meantime, we've lost Dario Cataldo from this front group now.
Yes, and for Pozzovivo, of course, we must remember that there's two AG men just up ahead, so that's going to be an interesting one. You know, they are just riding up at a slower pace now, recovering a bit, getting some to eat, and it will be interesting to see Villemos and Dupont how much they can really put on this group when they do get caught up by the group of favourites here.
That looks to be it for Mikel Landa. Aru left in this group, up ahead. Pozzovivo wants to join his mates. Now this is interesting. Rafał Majka has Mick Rogers up the road, and on Mick Rogers' wheel,
Mick is too strong.
Exactly, you've got Pozzovivo getting a free ride up to his teammates here. Rigoberto Urán's job is to close the gap. This is the leading group. Well, a bit of a disagreement there in fairly strong language between the Garmin car and the cameraman's bike. Not worth translating. You can see the group behind just on the slight descent as our leaders resume the stronger gradients. It's going to slightly tip uphill, 5% at the moment, but it gets a lot worse. 14% maximum. 1 minute 43. Heystal, Quintana, who flicks his arm, and Pierre Rolland will now come through. Well, that's the idea. Heystal doing a good job just to hang on. Can you get the idea, Sean, that not everybody's actually doing their turns in that group? Now, Inal, Evans and Kieślowski are the three riders, slightly distanced at the back. Organisation in the chasing group ahead. Mick Rogers on the front on that slight little section of descent. Again with the names around here. We're in German-speaking territory now. We're in Alto Adige, the Südtirol region of Italy. Very, very close to the Austrian border. Dolomites in all their splendour. Heystal, Rolland and Quintana are the leaders. 14.1 kilometres to go. Quintana, who struck out on the descent, we don't quite know how or why. The fact is they're there, they have a lead. And Sean Kelly, those behind in the group, not just a pink jersey, all have a big right to be worried now.
Yes, and we can see the advantage. You know, it's 136 at the moment. We're getting 140. We've seen that advantage. You know, just going up a couple of seconds, coming down a couple of seconds. It's not coming down great, and we've seen like the teams have been working for the other favourites who have missed this group of Quintana, Rolland. They have, you know, teammates who are working, and we just see a moment ago the two AG2R men were being joined by that group, and it's Mick Rogers who was really pushing on. And this climb, you know, it kicks up, the percentage goes up quite a lot, then it eases off a bit, and there's quite a bit of that, but the difficulty is certainly very much in the end. But 135 at the moment, it's not coming down really of anything major for the pink jersey.
Now, Asher Dessert will be the next team to take it up as and when Mick Rogers runs out of gas, but he's been strong so far in this Giro. There's Domenico Pozzovivo. Surely the day that he launches something, but again, how they're going to launch it out this group, that's the question. Pozzovivo has Dupont in front of him and Alexis Vuillermoz. Very, very similar tactic that the one that has worked to a certain extent for them on a couple of medium mountain stages so far. This is Quintana, still pulling Rolland and Heystal with him. 6% for them. Cadel Evans, face of suffering. The face of a fighter, though. A 37-year-old who's aiming to be the oldest man to win the Giro d'Italia in its history. 1 minute and 3 behind, second in the standings. comes a stage, Sean, where you're just running on adrenaline, surely here.
Yes, well, there is in the very end, that could be the case, but if you're on the running on the rail at the moment with 13 kilometres out, it's going to be a difficult one to cling on to this group and cling on to the other big favourites. But Evans, he looked like he's after being through the mill a bit, looks to be suffering there, but again, he's a battler, and he just clings on and fights, and that's what he's always been his style. He's sitting a long ways off in this group, but again, we can see there he's in the wheel of Fabio Aru, so with such a small group, I would not be concerned about that. But when AG2R take it up here, it's really interesting to see, will we see some of the favourites starting to lose difficulty? And if you lose at this time, 13 kilometres out, even 8 or 9 kilometres out, well, then you're going to lose a lot of time to the likes of Pozzovivo, if you've got the legs also, because the weather conditions, it's going to have effect on some of these favourites here in this group of chasers. Who will it be?
Well, you've got to have the legs all the way, let's say. In that last kilometre, the final hairpin bends go up to 14% gradient. Hardest part of this climb. We see 14% touched on a couple of occasions, but in the final 5 kilometres, and then in the final K. Front of the race, 1 minute and 40 on the pink jersey group. As Sean said, it's not changing too much. What we did see there, Sean, was a slight change in the hierarchy at the front of the group. We saw Agi Dessert starting to take it up from Mick Rogers, who just started to take a bit more of a backseat.
Well, Mick Rogers has been doing a lot of the pulling for quite a long time now, so he's going to have to pay for the effort, and there's going to be a moment when he will just peel off and finish up on the front of this group, and then it's the AG2R men, but they have been out there for quite a long time as well, so it's not as if they've been sitting in this group waiting for this moment, and it will be interesting to see how well they can pull it on and for how many kilometres.
Cadel Evans, numbers showing, ready for racing. How much can he stick it? Kieślowski, remember, with the leg warmers half on and half off there, right at the back in his Croatian national champions jersey, was out there in one of the very first attacks and breaks of the day. How much has he got left? Domenico Pozzovivo has his own teammate Alexis Vouillarmont on his wheel. Mick Rogers just in front of him, but it's Hubert Dupont doing all the work at the front at the moment. And thankfully the sun is out and you get a real good look at this beautiful, beautiful Dolomite countryside. Rafał Majka have to watch out. One thing we haven't talked about too much in this Giro is that we mentioned it once or twice very, very early on the race, but Quintana still in the young jersey competition. It's not just about the pink jersey for him. If he takes over, he's going to take over everything, isn't he?
Yes, well, it's going to work in both classements, overall classification, and of course for the young jersey classification. Quintana still qualifies for that, and that is going to be such a difficult one for Rafał Majka, and he just have to try and use the teammates as much as possible here, and that's what they have been doing. They have been doing a great job. Tinkoff-Saxo, they really have put in a lot of work today, as there is many other teams as well. And we can see up front here, it's Quintana who is the one who is having to do all the pulling on the front. He's gave the flick of the elbow a number of times to Pierre Roland, but he's not prepared to come through here. I think he's afraid, still with 12 kilometres out, if he starts to work with Quintana, he's going to pay the price as well. And Heidel is definitely not going to work, because he is really struggling there. He's lost contact on more than one occasion, so he is going to just cling on as long as possible and try and gain as much time on the other favourites back in this group of chasers as much as he can.
Well, great news for the present and the future of cycling in this Giro d'Italia, I have to say. I think we're watching the present of the future on the road. Barring Evans and Pozzovivo, top 10 of the Giro. Let's run through the ages. 27, 37, yes, we'll put that in brackets as one out the way, but 24, 23, 24, we come to Pozzovivo at 31, and 23, 27, 27, 26. It's good news, really good news, to see the future and the present of cycling really fighting it out for this Giro d'Italia. It's exciting in a way.
Yes, well, it's always exciting, and I think we're at that point now where there's a new generation of general classification men coming in.
11.6 Ks to go. 7% for the leaders on the gradient, 8.2% for the men who were on your screen a minute ago. 1 minute and 59, and the gap has grown out to almost 2 minutes again. Quintana doing all of this riding on his own, by the way. As Sean said, he's flicked the arm, nobody coming through. And as Chris Dunford said, watching today, we're getting all 4 seasons. The Giro's like that. Thanks for watching, Chris. Thanks for tweeting in. Hashtag Eurosport Cycling. Get involved. Join the conversation, everybody. The Giro d'Italia today in all of its drama. We hope at the end in all of its glory. Sebastian Henao still on the back of that group. Riding very, very well for Team Sky. Kochalovsky is there. This is Quintana on the left. Colombian. Roland, the Frenchman, on the right. Ryder Hagedal hanging on towards the back. Two minutes. It's improving all the time for these guys. And we're not, as you can see with the gradients, on any too much of different roads. It's just strong riding at the minute by Quintana.
Yes, well, I think Quintana would maybe prefer a little bit more steeper because the terrain here, it's more for the powerful riders, and he's in a situation now, still over 11 kilometers out, that he has to, push on here. And when you look at that distance, it's going to be an interesting one. Will he be able to hold, working at this pace all the way? Because the other favourites back in the group here, they've had, the advantage. They've been using all their teammates, different teams, putting teammates on the front. Have they got a bit more left and a bit more energy? We'll have to see further on. They're playing the waiting game at the moment, but I'm not surprised because there's still lots of time left to do something here. And this 2 minute advantage, if somebody is good here in this group, well, they could, ease into that big time on Quintana. And it depends on how strong Quintana is for the next 10 kilometres.
4,300 vertical metres of climbing today. Add in the weather. Factor in the fact that this is the 3rd week now of the Giro d'Italia. It's seen so many crashes, bit of illness as well, poor weather. This is a hellish day. Off goes Dupont. Back comes Mick Rogers. There is Rafał Majka on the right-hand side, our Italian colleagues concentrating on Fabio Aru in the light blue. Wilco Kelderman, get the impression we really haven't talked about him enough. He has been another revelation at this Giro d'Italia. Always a rider who's shown plenty of promise, but this could be his coming of age. Virtual standing looked like that, 28 seconds at the minute. Quintana getting closer and closer and closer to the big jersey. And they're on the harder section, 10%. Quintana doing all of the riding here as we see our Slovakian fans enjoying themselves on the side of the road. Yes, we said 4,300 metres of vertical climbing today, 60.6 kilometres of this 139 kilometre stage uphill, almost half of it. Hellish day, and there are some tired faces, some weary faces, but there's more to come. This is your moment, Fabio Aru. What can you do at this Giro? It's the message that the entire Italian cycling public are telling Fabio Aru. Now Quintana, Roland. Oh, and Hagedal struggling to hold the wheel. Another gutsy performance from him. We saw Monte Campione, in fact, with Hagedal the other day. Hasn't really looked at his best, but he's really shown some fight for a team that have enjoyed some awful look at this Giro d'Italia.
Yes, well, he is really fighting, and today is one of many days that he's going to have to fight, and we've seen him here on the steeper sections, just clinging on there to the wheel of Pierre Roland. And when it gets a little bit easier, of course, then you can get a little bit of recovery time in the drafting of the two riders out in front. Unfortunately for Pierre Roland, with Quintana, there's not a lot of drafting behind him because the difference. Quintana is such a small lightweight, and Pierre Roland, a big tall rider, but he can really get up the climb so well. But it's going to be interesting to see can Pierre Roland hold on to Quintana all the way on this one. He's certainly going about in the right way because he stopped doing the pace and the pulling on the front, and by doing that, well, you have some chance. And with Quintana having to ride here, he'll not be as explosive as he can be when you get further up here. He'll not be able to put in these sudden accelerations as much normally, but we will have to wait and see. So when we get to the steep sections, we know Quintana, you know, he's so strong when he gets to the very steep section.
10 kilometres to go for the leaders. On the 6.4% gradient as it stands, they have a lead of 2 minutes and 15 seconds over the Maglia Rosa group that includes Rigoberto Urán. At the moment, Urán is holding on to his pink jersey, but not by very much. Long way to go, though, in this Giro. Remember, tomorrow is a day for either attackers stroke any sprinters who have any energy left. But after that, remember, today's not definitive, is it? We see Rifugio Panarotta, another big climb. Monte Grappa, which could really blow the race apart in terms of time differences on the mountain time trial. Then the deadly Monte Zoncolan. Whatever happens today, again, it's nothing that we can really take as a definitive gap, is it? This Giro is going to go right to the wire, whatever happens.
Well, looking at the moment, yes, but again, we have to see at the end of today, because it can change so much within this final 10 kilometres. You know, there could be 2 minutes of a difference between some of the riders we have here with Rigoberto Urán, because if somebody puts in an attack here, like Pozzovivo, for example, well, this group could blow to pieces very quickly. So it's just day by day, and you know, as a general classification rider, you just hang in there. If you're not feeling good, you just try and limit your losses. If you're feeling okay, well, then you try and go on the attack and take time out of somebody else, and that's the way it is. And unfortunately, this race, there's so many more days of real difficult terrain. You know, it can change so much in this final week of this race, and you know, it's going to be the ones who are finishing with that little bit more energy, who feel a bit better, they can do so much more. And Quintana, at the moment, he's looking like the one who is going to be the real danger man to win this race overall. But there is no guarantee. He could have a difficult day in the next number of days and lose a huge amount of time to some of the other favourites.
9.3 Ks to go. 2 minutes and 30 seconds almost. Still Quintana pulls on the front. Pierre Roland behind him. Ryder Hagestyle in third place.
Come on, give everything, Ryder, come on!
Come on, give everything, Ryder. That's the message. Some advice in his native tongue. And he's going to get all sorts of different things he doesn't understand shouted at him in this linguistically very interesting region. And, of course, everybody from all over the world on the side of the roads. It's a cobra-like road at the top here. So Pantano back, absorbed by those chasing.
And what a ride by Mick Rogers. He is been on the front there for kilometre after kilometre. Before we got onto the climb, he was already very much to the front. But he's been, you know, doing so many kilometres here, setting the pace and still working away and, you know, trying to limit the loss for Rafa Majka.
8.8 Ks to go. We're with the Maglia Rosa group, 2 minutes and 30 behind. Quintana up front, attempting to rip the pink jersey off for the shoulders of his compatriot Rigoberto Urán. Quintana has company, Pierre Roland and Ryder Hagestyle. How they got away, that's going to be a matter of debate for a long time. There's a certain social media operative under intense pressure this evening, you feel. A lot of discussion's going to go on. Who said what, who did what, but at the minute it has to be played out on the road. The only way they can fight it out here. Up the Val Martello, less than 1,000 inhabitants up here. One of the more remote regions of northern Italy. Snaking road, 8 hairpins in the final kilometre. Road up to 14%. In these conditions, whatever route they took on today was always going to be hard, but there's a big difference of 60.6 kilometres of climbing along the road, or 39.1 in the spare stage they had. The organisers chose to put everybody through the mill. Cataldo now back onto this group. Inau still in there, 195. Reaching into his jersey pocket was Robert Kieślowski. Into one of the endless tunnels they go. Case of waiting, seeing these gaps change, and Sean, the gaps we're getting at the minute, no matter what happens, what the gradient is, no matter how big this group behind or the strength of the turn for Mick Rogers, it's still going in favour of Nairo Quintana.
Yes, it's still going out, and it's amazing, you know, when you see the riders have been on the front. We had the two AG2R riders who we put in a big effort there, and we have Rogers back on the front again, but Quintana just working away at it and eating out an advantage all the time here, and you know, going to 2:35 at the moment. Is there anybody able to up the pace back in the peloton? If not, well, we could see Quintana going into the pink jersey, because at the moment it's looking that way.
5 seconds away from the pink jersey as it stands. Make that 4 as they gain another second. Pierre Rolland into the top 5, and again, the more this improves, the more it also improves for Pierre Rolland. Let's not forget.
Yes, well, Pierre Rolland is also going to certainly move up. If you look at, he's in 8th place in general classification at the moment, so he can move up to
well, virtual 5th on the road at the minute.
Yes, 5th place, and if that continues on as it's going, with the time growing out all the time in their advantage out front, well, you know, he could find himself moving, you know, really up on the top of the leaderboard. And it's all going to be down to the men here if they can up the pace a bit and really put in a good, you know, 4 or 5 kilometres final here and pull back this advantage, but growing out all the time.
Growing. Quintana, who's certainly riding on the front this time. If there's a question mark about his attitude with Domenico Pozzovivo the other day, for which he later apologised, there's no question about who's doing the riding on this ascent. Quintana again goes. It's a question of the guys sticking with him. Look at all these people who've suffered under the rain, frozen under the snow, just like the riders there. Immense kudos should be given to everybody who's got out a look at this stage today. Quintana, is this the moment he distances everybody? We hit one of the harder gradients. This is the section where it's going to go up to close on 14% for the first time. And we're seeing the difference being made. You said Sean he wanted and waited for those higher gradients. He's got what he wanted. This is Nairo Quintana's Giro on the road right now.
Yes, well, I think you know, he's putting up an unbelievable performance here. He's been riding there for the last 5 or 6 kilometres on the front, and when you get to the steeper section, he just keeps on working at it, and the other guys, you know, having difficulties following his wheel. And you can see there, normally if a guy has to ride in the front for 3 or 4 kilometres with the other guys in his slipstream, well, then it just, you know, makes it that bit more tired and you're not as strong when it gets to the steep gradient. But he just walks away here, and you know, that's the climber he is. He's just the steeper the gradient, the better he goes.
Nairo Quintana, 24-year-old Colombian from Movistar. Before today, 5th at 2 minutes and 40 down. At the minute, he is very, very close to the Maglia Rosa. 2:31 in his gap. He's riding away now from Rolland and the man who was with him hanging on, Heijsdal. This is what's happening on behind. Now, all on his own, isolated. It's the moment of truth as well for Rigoberto Urán.
Yes, it will be interesting to see what he can do here. It's looking like that, you know, first of all up front, when it gets a little bit easier, when it eases off, we can see Pierre Rolland and Heijsdal getting back to Quintana, but with what we've got to come, I think we will see this situation a number of times. And in the very final, of course, the gradient is going to all be play into Quintana's climbing ability, the real steep gradient. But with Urán back here in the main group, Rogers peeling off, as we can see in Urán, he's going to have to take it up now. Will he get support from the other favourites? I reckon he will have to, because they are also going to be concerned about Pierre Rolland, you know, moving up much big time in the general classification.
In the next few stages, there will be attacks and more attacks, said Quintana yesterday. He's proven it right himself with his attack today. Rolland and Heijsdal make it back on, as Sean said. How long for? That is the question. As soon as it gets a little harder again, we've seen that Quintana has the beating of them. 3 minutes now ahead of Rigoberto Urán. As it stands on the road, Nairo Quintana is the leader of the Giro d'Italia. His first ever appearance at the race. 6.5 kilometres still to go. Surely there are attacks still to come out from the Maglia Rosa group behind, which of course will put pressure on that gap. And for the minute, it is big, big news for Nairo Quintana, Colombia, Movistar and the Giro as a whole. Cataldo still holding on. Pantano's in this group as well. Rafał Majka. And Majka is going to put the pace on himself now. He's watched as Rogers has done the work. Kelderman on his wheel, Pozzovivo behind, and a couple of wheels of distance between Pozzovivo and the Maglia Rosa. What has Uran got in his locker? 3:11. So that was that moment, Sean, that you were talking about. Majka decided that he had to light it up, and we're seeing problems for Cadel Evans, who already looked in trouble earlier on.
Yes, and it's coming to the point now where anybody is feeling they've some bit left of power to go on here. You have to, go for it, because over 3 minutes of an advantage, you have to start reaction at this point. And it's Majka who's the one who's tried there, but he's not seeming to continue.
Rafał Majka wants organisation after he gaps Cadel Evans. In the meantime, it's an attack up the front again from Nairo Quintana. Out onto the pedals, trying to keep this gap that would put him, as it stands, into the pink jersey with less than 6 kilometres to go. 3 minutes and 6 for him, Hejstal and Roland. The Colombian showing to be the strongest man out there on the road at the minute today. The only one who 24 hours ago, when asked about the possibility of this or reserve stage, said, no, this is the stage that I want to do. This is the stage that I've been looking at, and we're seeing why, Sean Kelly.
Yes, well, I think, it suits his qualities so well, and but the way he's went about it, it's surprising that, going out so far. I was expecting to see a big showdown on this final climb here to Val Martello, and that's where he could really pull the advantage out. But he's went out for so far, and he's been riding for so far out, and this is going to be a real test of stamina, because if he can continue on, hold on to 3 minutes, maybe grow it out more, that will be such a powerful performance out of a small guy to ride in the earlier part, the easier part of the climb, let's say, and still able to be able to pull an advantage out against the other big favourites. As we can see, a bit more movement on the front of the group of favourites here at the moment, with Kelderman just rolling on.
More movement in the general classification as well, because Quintana will be leading by 29 seconds as it stands, and Pierre Roland will be into 4th place. Ryder Hejstal hauling himself into the top 10 as well. A huge change on the Giro d'Italia. 12.4% the gradient, 7% for the Maglia Rosa. Pain, suffering etched onto the faces of all those behind. And naturally, as the leader of the race on his own, Uran here is being made to ride. Kizolowski is the man behind him in the Croatian champions jersey. Quintana very much in the saddle as he spins the gear uphill. Moves on, and moves ahead as well, wheel by wheel, taking that distance ahead of a fighting, suffering Ryder Hejstal. Plenty of support for Rigo Uran. As you can see, long live the Giro, written on the road. Remember that Uran used to live very, very close to here, just down the road on the lakes. He knows the roads. Last time he supposedly rode it was a year ago, though. Now, this is interesting, Sean, because Roland is the one that's showing the weakness now.
Yes, it is surprising. Hejstal is, just fighting there and doing a great job, because it looked like a number of kilometres ago he was the weaker one, but Roland is the one who is starting to go through a difficult moment. And we can see here Uran just pushing on a bit with Mike in his wheel, Kelderman just chasing on here, and gaps appear. We can see Cadel Evans is 7-10 minutes off the rear here, so a little bit of up in pace here. But the percentage here, as we can see, this is where they're going to have difficulty, the bigger guys against the great climber that Quintana is. It's so difficult for them to hold on here.
Right smack bang in the middle of the Colombian fans on the road. Quintana rides past them. 5 kilometres to go over the big 14% section. He'll next meet that gradient inside the final K. And talking of big and little guys, it's little and large here, because Quintana's in the front, and the huge former winner, the wiry figure of Ryder Hejstal, is putting in a real gutsy ride behind. Right onto the wheel of Quintana. 4.9 to go, 3 minutes and 19 seconds. Is Quintana on his way to the Maglia Rosa at the minute? Unless there is some reaction behind, we shall see. Majka and Kelderman now. Evans still suffering, as is Sebastiani now. He's put in a great ride anyway, and Fabio Aru. Rafał Majka leading the young jersey classification at the minute. He needs to fight for that himself as well. Majka with a Polish fan, really giving it all alongside him. They're not going to be popular with Wilco Kelderman if he continues on that line. Our friend from Poland finally gets out the way. 37-year-old going to ride in almost 5 minutes down on today's winner, and the new leader of the Giro d'Italia, Nairo Quintana. Evans fighting to the last pedal stroke, 4:47 as he crosses the line. Kieselowski in at the same time as well. What a stage. 5 minutes down. So much to wrap up, and we will continue wrapping up for months and months, and perhaps years to come on today. Evans, one of the big losers. Uran, though, the biggest loser. He loses the pink jersey.
Yes, well, the general classification meant a number of them, and as you said, Uran, losing a lot of time to Quintana, and nothing he could do about it. I think on the final climb, if he had anything left, he would have, just started setting a pace and really try to pull back the advantage of Quintana. Evans, of course, as well. We see that 4:47, so big gaps, and everybody coming in, quite substantial gaps between everybody. Quintana, you have to hand it to him, chapeau.
Certainly, real congratulations to Nairo Quintana. It's his third win of the season. He took stage 4 to Alto El Amago in Tour de San Luis earlier this year. And then he also wrapped up the GC there. It's another very good ride from Agi Dezer's team. Pozzovivo's gained a few seconds on the man who was in pink before today, but we have a new leader now, and it's going to be a complete shake-up of everything we saw this morning when we woke up and looked at the newspaper. Quintana wins by 8 seconds from Ryder Hagedal, 1 minute and 13 to Pierre Rolland, but look at these gaps. 3:32 to Kelderman, 3:37 to Pozzovivo, over 4 minutes to Rigoberto Uran. Evans in 10th, Quintana the big winner, and he's the new leader of the Giro as he wins for only the second time on Italian soil. Quintana winning a stage of the Giro dell'Emilia, winning the one-day race, pardon me, back in 2012. Quintana here, so many questions about his health before today, but he delighted those looking on. If they're disappointed about Uran losing pink, Colombia will be going crazy for this man.
Yes, they certainly will. And yeah, talking about his sickness and that, it doesn't look like there was any sickness today, because you had that performance. It was just a huge performance out of him. The way he went out and went about it and got out in front and then continued on. The power he had all the way for such a long way out, it is amazing. I thought it would be down to the final climb where he would do his business, that explosive attack, but he really went out and battled for it and did it the hard way.
And thankfully, after all the worries when we came to air today, the conditions we saw that really put very worried looks on both of our faces, everybody, it sounds as though, has got around safely.
Well, it looked so dangerous out there, with the wet and the snow coming down. We were really concerned, and I think the teams and the team managers would have been very much in that way as well. But thankfully, it all went well from what we've been hearing, and what a spectacular stage. Unfortunately, the weather made it so much difficult for the riders, and that is something for the days to come. I think we can see some more of the consequences of that horrible conditions today.
Yeah, let's hope that everybody manages to get dry, get warm, and stay healthy over the next few days, whatever their position on the road here. Everybody's contributed to a pretty amazing race today. Nairo Quintana leads the Giro d'Italia by 1 minute and 41 seconds over Rigoberto Uran. It's a Colombian 1-2. Cadel Evans for the moment, it's as he was 12 months ago, third, 3:21 back, but look at that from Pierre Rolland. A great ride into the top four. Majka's fifth. Aru, Pozzovivo, Kelderman, Hagedal and Kieselowski the top 10. Nairo Quintana, though, is the new Maglia Rosa of this 2014 Giro d'Italia.